In Baldur's Gate 3, only 3% of players have ever successfully completed an honor mode run. That's the same percentage of the human population that can properly function off less than 6 hours of sleep, which actually makes a lot of sense actually. As part of that 3%, the honor mode, not the sleep part, with over 700 hours and 100% of the achievements for this game, I will explain every mandatory fight in honor mode to maximize your chances of getting your own golden dice. Make sure to like this video to show me that you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more, and let's just jump into it. So for this first fight with the imps, there's actually not much to say because you basically just keep throwing your skills at them and they have very low AC, which means they're very easy to hit. It's very unlikely that you will wipe in this fight. Use all your special skills that do damage and you should be fine for this fight. Now for the Helm Transponder fight, the main thing that you can use to push your advantage here is that there is a dippable surface on the right side when you begin the battle, which means that if you can go ahead and just dip your weapons, specifically your arrows, before you start the fight, then you'll have an average of +2 damage throughout the entire fight, which will maximize your chances of killing the enemy and going through as fast as you can. So this fight is the one that actually ends up wiping a lot of people that are starting their first honor mode runs, which is the Intellect Devourers. As you can see, I'm approaching the sight line of the Intellect Devourers while crouching and hiding, but at the same time, if I just simply walk up to them, if I unhide and walk up, then they will actually run away the first time that I encounter them. But once they are in this position that's next to that purple tank, if you approach their sight line again and you are not hiding, then you will start to fight, and they are pretty dangerous because they can go ahead and one-shot you, and they do have a ranged attack for that. As you can see here, you usually want to go ahead and go up to high ground that's on the right side, but at the same time, you don't actually have to start this fight with just yourself and Shadowheart, or if you didn't pick up Shadowheart, then just by yourself. You don't have to actually start this fight, so you can actually go to this cliff that's on the right side as well, a little bit back, and with just a couple of short jumps, you can actually make it all the way up to the top here, and then once you make it to the top, then you can actually go ahead and start gathering all of your teammates. So for example, I can see down here, so this is the cliff that I jumped up, and once I walk around, then I can go ahead and see the portal here, which means that I can go ahead and pick up Gale, and Gale is really good because he adds guaranteed firepower for this upcoming fight because he is a wizard, which means he gets magic missiles, which never misses, and also it gives experience, which is why I was able to go to level 2 here. Now I can go ahead and make my way in here. I will actually see a dying mind flayer who has a little bit of HP, and of course you can go ahead and approach it, but that will actually require a wisdom check, which means that if you just go ahead and use any ranged attack from far away, then you'll be able to kill it immediately and you won't have a chance to potentially end your run, because if you do miss that wisdom check, then you actually will get eaten by the mind flayer, which means that you will die and your teammates, whichever ones you have, will need to fight a mind flayer that has near full health and full power, which basically means you will wipe. Now we went ahead and picked up all 4 parties, so now we are a full party of 4. So then after leveling up from gaining the experience of picking up all these companions, then you should be at level 2, and you can go ahead and pick up shield, which is insanely good because it only activates when you're about to get hit, which means you can negate damage guaranteed, and you can also pick up magic missiles along with a bunch of other things that your companions will grow into. So from here, of course, you can go all the way around and go back to where you came from to get that high ground on the right side. If you want to do that, that's totally okay, but I'm just going to go ahead and start the fight here. And now that it is effectively a 3v4, even if I don't have the high ground, I still have enough firepower with a lot of the magic missiles and the fact that I can focus all of my firepower into one enemy at a time, which means that when all 4 of your characters are collapsing into one Intellect Devourer at a time, you should be able to take it down relatively easily. And also now that you're level 2, you won't get one shot by these Intellect Devourers. In Honor mode, one of the most notable things is that the enemies are just simply harder to hit because they have an increase in their armor class, which basically just means that there's a negative 10% chance that you will hit them. But to counteract this, I highly recommend using Bless, which basically adds a 1d4, which is just very very complicated way to say that on average, you will get a 10% increase chance to hit them. Now, in honor mode, it is all about trying to minimize chances, which means that you want to go ahead and try to rely on things that are for sure as much as you can. So for example, in here, because the Intellect Devourers are relatively low health, I can actually use Gale to cast Sleep, because Sleep lands 100% of the time. There is no way to save from it, which means that you can effectively take out the enemies from the battle for 2 turns, which is huge. You can turn basically a 2v4 into a 1v4 for effectively 2 rounds. This isn't really a mandatory fight, but I really like Lae'zel, so I'm gonna cover this one. It really helps to have a character base that is really good at charisma checks, specifically persuasion, intimidation, and deception, because if you're able to yap hard enough, basically you can go ahead and skip fights and get all the experience anyways. That's why I went with Sorcerer here, but there are other classes that are also very proficient in charisma. Usually for the face, you want to go ahead and focus on this, because then you can go ahead and just cheat yourself out of a lot of fights for free experience. Now to the Grove Gate fight. This fight isn't actually too bad, because while the goblins themselves are relatively high level, you basically just need to approach from the top and you'll be fine. Because if you are standing on a platform that's sufficiently higher than your opponents, then you will also get +2 to your attack rolls, which is also just another complicated way of saying you have another +10% to your accuracy. So as long as you start from the top here, then you'll just have these 2 goblins to deal with, which you can focus down on your own. And while the enemies themselves, they are also usually higher level than you, but they'll be busy actually fighting off the other NPCs, so you actually don't have to worry about them. And as you'll see from the gameplay here, I actually don't use any of the special skills that you usually need, like Sleep or Magic Missiles. You can actually get through this entire fight without even using any of the spell slots and just firing away cantrips such as Firebolt from a high distance, which gives you higher accuracy. Now that we've entered the grove, we're going to go ahead and start by freeing Sazza, because if we do, then we'll be able to walk straight into the Goblin Camp with her escorting us. So this can turn into a fight, but luckily if you follow the previous steps and you have a very good yapper on your team, then you can pass all those persuasion checks, which means this should not turn into a fight. And then after that, you can just go ahead and free Sazza. And a lot of people try to walk her out of the grove directly, but there's actually a cave right behind Sazza's prison. So then you can actually leave her right out here, and then you can actually enter this passage. But the problem with this passage is that there are statues that attacks you whenever it enters its vision. So then I'm going to go ahead and use a mage hand, which comes with Lae'zel's Githyanki race, and then I can go ahead and disable both of the buttons, which make it so that if we walk up, then the statue won't attack us. Now I left Sazza outside for this, because if you bring in Sazza into the passage, then if you try to hide or anything like that, because technically she's not considered part of your team, so then you'll enter her line of sight and then you won't actually be able to hide. Now the underground passage actually has the other entrance that is right outside of the grove, a little bit to the left. So then I'm going to enter through the other side, because this will actually give you high ground. And as we covered before, when you have high ground, you'll have +10% to accuracy, and you'll also be able to take out the enemy that's on high ground, which means everyone else will be on the lower platforms, which basically means that as long as you're just flinging cantrips or arrows from that high ground, you'll be able to land it pretty easily, considering that you'll also be able to apply Bless as well. So here I was able to immediately use Magic Missiles to take out the top person, and then after that, now I'm just casually throwing arrows down from the high ground, and it minimizes the risk quite a bit, and throwing in a little bit of Magic Missiles here and there. One other thing that you can use to apply to your advantage is that when you do have the high ground on your opponents, then as you kind of saw here, I went ahead and took out all the ranged archers first, because all the melee fighters, the ones that are holding the great axes and the swords, clearly they're going to have to walk all the way up to you to actually fight. So then as long as you take out the archers first, you'll basically be safe almost the entire time. Now that I went from the other side to gain the high ground and I was able to defeat them, now I can go ahead and grab Sazza and I can come down here, and yeah, I can just walk straight through all the way out into the cave and I will be good. Now, one other thing to note here is that there is a lot of oil barrels here, so be careful not to trigger the trap. Yeah, you can go ahead and pick up all these flammable barrels because these will be very, very, very useful for the upcoming mandatory boss fights. And now Sazza is free. Now, when you're about to enter the Blighted Village, they will naturally have high ground on you because they'll be on the rooftop waiting for you to go ahead and attack. But as you can see here, with Shadowheart being in the trickery domain, you can actually just go ahead and use Disguise Self to disguise her as a drow and then just walk up through the front, because basically goblins have a subservient relationship with drow. You can also go ahead and talk to, what's his name, Vezir here, and he's a goblin as well, which means that as long as you're leading with Shadowheart, who is disguised as a drow, then a lot of the dialogue checks will be a lot easier. So you can just yap your way through it as long as you're a drow, so you can just disguise self, and there you go. Now for the entrance of the Goblin Camp itself, if we went ahead and saved Sazza as before, then even though there are goblins here with the high ground, Sazza will just go ahead and take you through, which means you can just go ahead and approach. Now, if we are going to go ahead and take down the Goblin King, then that's going to turn all the goblins against us. So if you want, you can go ahead and take the high ground and take them out here, but I will go ahead and do that later. Now, we brought Sazza, which means that we can just go ahead and walk through this entire place all the way to the Heart of the Absolute, but it seems like Gale is hungry, so we're just going to feed him first. As we can see here, we can just walk into the Goblin Camp and everybody is neutral, at least non-hostile. So now after letting Shadowheart yap a little bit, now Sazza will go ahead and take us through here. There you go, and she's just going to let us all the way to the camp. And now we're going to deal with Priestess Gut. Of course, you can go ahead and just let her brand you here because it actually helps with a lot of the other future gameplay where you can just avoid fights. After you talk to her for a little bit, she'll take you to this remote room where she will be completely alone. Now, this part is a little bit tricky, and I did mess up a little bit here on the honor run. If she does get a turn when entering into a fight with you, she will call out for help, which means everyone in the Shattered Sanctum will turn hostile, which is actually what happened here because I didn't put the silence ROA or her in the center of it, and I also didn't restrain any of her movements, but you can go ahead and do that. If you do successfully kill her inside the silent cube, then of course you will not be able to call out for help, which means that you will be able to have the entire sanctum still be non-hostile towards you, which is better. But as with any honor mode run, not everything goes to plan, so then she's able to call her allies here, which is actually a good opportunity to talk about what happens when you are completely outnumbered, as in this case, because I didn't do any preparation, so I'm actually quite underleveled here. When things don't go to plan such as this, then usually you want to go ahead and flee combat. So then in this case, one thing that you can do is once you take out the priestess, then she will have a key to her private room. So then you can go ahead and loot the key off of her body. And then because all party members will have access to this key, as long as one party member is holding it, then I can go ahead and use this key to go ahead and escape into her room, which is considered a different area. Then now Lae'zel has successfully escaped the battle, and this is totally okay. This happens a lot in honor mode. Sometimes the battle just doesn't go to plan, and then you want to go ahead and flee. Of course, when you are in this situation, then you want to go ahead and pick up some invisibility potions because that will make it extremely easy for at least one of the party members to go ahead and escape, which means you'll be able to resurrect the rest of your party using withers. But in this case, this is a very minimal preparation run, so then you'll be a lot more equipped than I am. But since I don't have an invisibility potion here, I can just go ahead and escape to the private room of Priestess Gut, which will go ahead and disengage the battle with the rest of the goblins. And there I am, and now everyone is successfully back and escaped. Now we have successfully taken down one out of the 3 goblin leaders, so then we want to go ahead and take out the other 2 for the end of this video, but before that we can go ahead and clear the Shattered Sanctum. Now one thing to note is that even if everyone in the Shattered Sanctum is hostile, as is the case right now, that actually doesn't apply to the entire Goblin Camp. So as you can see, I'm still walking around outside and it's totally totally fine, but the inside is going to be hostile because Priestess Gut was able to call out for help earlier in that fight. Luckily, there is another thing we can do here to gain a huge advantage when clearing out the Sanctum, which is that you can go ahead and enter through a secret passage that gives you very, very high ground. Now, of course, you can actually skip this fight if you cast Silence next to the wall, but you can also just go ahead and start the fight. As you can see, there were some wine barrels next to the goblins, which means that you can go ahead and ignite those with fire. That way you can instantly almost take out 2 goblins, and then you'll be stuck here with a 3v4, which means you'll be able to fight them. One important thing to note here is that there is a ranger, and when a ranger summons a warg, then the warg obviously is going to have a lot of health and is able to hit really hard. So you want to go ahead and focus on taking out that archer / ranger, because once you're able to take out the ranger themselves, then the warg will disappear, which means you won't have to spend any resources taking down the warg unless you have to. Now, after clearing the fight here, you can actually see there's this wall, and I brought Will just for this purpose because his Eldritch Blast is able to get through the walls really, really well. And now that we went through the walls, we're going to go grab our good old reliable Gale, which is our magic missile machine, which has a 100% accuracy, which will add guaranteed fire power to this fight. Now, as you can see here, now we are on the roof of the Shattered Sanctum, which means that you'll be able to have very, very high ground on your enemies, which gives you that plus 10% accuracy to all your attacks. And now you can see there is a ladder on the right side of the screen here. So then that's going to be the main ladder that's going to give your enemies access to you if possible. So you want to go ahead and put your close range fighter, your marshals, all those frontline fighters, at least one of them next to the ladder. That way, if they do finish climbing up, then you can go ahead and attack them from there. But yeah, as you can see here, now because we are so high up, then we can actually go ahead and attack all of them with increased accuracy, and they will attack us with lower accuracy. And some of the melee classes cannot even attack us. That's just like they need to climb up to do so. So even if you are significantly outnumbered here, as long as you're just casually throwing down your cantrips and your arrows and your spells, then you'll be at a huge advantage, and the chance of you wiping is very, very, very low. Now, one thing to note here is that we did kill Priestess Gut before doing this, because Priestess Gut is able to pull players off of the ledge, which means that you'll actually take huge fall damage, and potentially a character might die just from falling off the ledge. But other than Priestess Gut, no one else has the ability to do this. So once Priestess Gut is dead, then you can go ahead and engage this high elevation fight, which means that you'll comfortably be able to take out everyone, and they won't even be able to reach you at all, which means it completely minimizes the chances of you wiping. And as you can see here, there are some people that are slowly approaching the ladder, but not fast enough. But as they approach the ladder, then you can just go ahead and focus on those specific characters, and you'll be completely safe. Now, one other important thing to note here is that you don't want to go ahead and approach Minthara too early, because the moment you finish talking to Minthara, then they will go ahead and start gathering troops to go ahead and assault the grove, and we don't want that. We want to go ahead and just resolve everything here. So then before all of that comes into play, you can just go ahead and clear out the Goblin Camp first. Now, after you clear out the Sanctum to a relatively good amount, of course, without approaching Minthara, because that's going to go ahead and trigger the invasion, which is not what we want. We're gonna go ahead and delay approaching Minthara until later on. But of course, back to this, you actually have access to a lot of smoke powder and fire wine and oil barrels, and you want to go ahead and pick all of these up because you're going to want to use them for the mandatory fight that's going to come up in Act 2, and a lot of these barrels will make that fight a complete easy breeze. Now, for fighting Minthara as well as the Goblin King Dror Ragzlin, you are going to most likely be under their current level unless you did a lot of exploring and got a lot of experience that way, but this is a relatively minimum playthrough, so then we are going to need some help. Luckily, we do have that option available to us in the form of Halsin, the druid. Now, to rescue Halsin, we're going to actually need to fight the goblins here in the work pens, which is completely fine. These guys are not too strong or anything, but one of the things to note here is that there is another ranger, another beast master, who can go ahead and summon a spider. So then we're going going to actually want to place all of our party members next to that Beastmaster. That way when the fight starts, as we can see here, we have 3 members that are next to the Beastmaster ready to go. That way we can take him out first, because once we take him out, then the spider will magically disappear and then we won't have to worry about it anymore. Of course, there are the tiny little goblins like 1, 2, and 3 that are going to try to escape and call for help, and they are relatively easy to defeat, so you can take them out if you have the leisure to do so. But at this point, you should have already cleared out a lot of the Shattered Sanctum, which means that even if they do call for help, of course, it's not going to be that big of a deal. But yeah, of course, you do want to still take out those little guys before they can call for help. That way, this fight is as easy as possible. And as you can see there, Lae'zel was able to successfully take out the Beastmaster, which means that now there is no more spider, and then now the numbers are significantly in your favor. And now we're doing the cleanup here, and one other thing you can use to push your advantage, similar to the Helm fight, is that there are 2 braziers that you can actually light up at any time, and then these are dippable surfaces as well, which means that as long as you are standing at the top, then you can go ahead and just dip all your arrows and then just casually fire with those extra firepower, and then Halsin will mostly just do all the damage for you, and you can just go ahead and stand at the top of the stairs and just go ahead and support him with a little bit of firepower. Now, if you do have Halsin, which is a great help for this fight, then you want to try to engage at the bottom like so, but I did make a little bit of mistake here, which is that I did enter with the rest of my teammates a little bit too early. I should have waited until Minthara and the rest of them are focused on Halsin before I introduce the rest of them to the fight. So as you can see here, there is a ladder that's next to where Minthara and Sazza are, so then you can have your teammates ready to go here. That way they can climb up the ladder and then have the high ground on everyone. Now, because I did introduce the rest of my teammates a bit too early into the fight, so then Minthara was not too focused on Halsin before I entered with everyone. So then because of that, Minthara is focused on gaining the high ground back, which is why she's also climbing up the ladder and fighting with me there, which is not ideal, because ideally you want to go ahead and monopolize the high ground. That way you have that direct plus 10% accuracy, while everyone else coming up towards you has that negative 10% accuracy. But unfortunately, that is not the case here because I brought them in a little bit too early. I should have waited until Minthara is focused on Halsin, because Halsin has like 1,000,000 HP and a lot of health, so then you don't have to worry about Halsin dying. That's really not an issue. But either way, I mean, this is an honor mode run, and as you would expect, not everything goes to plan, but it's all about minimizing risk and trying to rely on sure things and pushing for advantages as much as you can, as we are doing here with the high ground. So then the rest of the goblins are stuck at the bottom, which means that we're able to go ahead and fight on even footing. One other thing about this fight that is of note is that there is the Scrying Eye, and the Scrying Eye is very, very hard to take down in honor mode / tactician, because not only is it resistant to basically every damage, it also has all incoming damage reduced by 8, which basically means that you have to hit at least 16, because that 16 damage will be reduced to 8, and then that basically 8 damage will be reduced back to 0. So then you're going to need to hit extremely hard, unless you have thunder damage, of course, which is why we have Gale carrying Thunder Wave, but also you can have other forms such as Chromatic Orb. So you always want to have some level of thunder damage going into fights where you know that there's going to be a Scrying Eye, because other than that, especially at this level, at this stage of the game, there's not much that you can actually do to destroy it, because it's almost invulnerable, because it reduces every damage by half and then reduces it again by 8. Now, the thing that I did want to show you is that, as you can see, it's a bloodbath here in the Sanctum, but even though that is the case, if we just go ahead and walk right outside, well, okay, we have to leave Halsin back because Halsin's only allowed in the Sanctum here at this point of the story. But yeah, as you can see, the ogre is non-hostile. So inside is a bloodbath and everybody is super chill. Everybody's non-hostile and neutral. Even if you accidentally anger the Sanctum, you will not actually anger everyone else in the Goblin Camp, which is cool. But if you do kill the Goblin King, that will turn everybody hostile, which is why we're going to go ahead and save that for last. So we're going to clean up all the goblins first. Now, when clearing out the Goblin Camp, there are a couple places you can start, but one place that I would recommend is the drunkards on the right side over here, because as you'll see later on, if you were to go ahead and trigger one of the other fights, and they can beat the war drum, which will attract these 3, and then these 3 will be added on top of the encounter, which is not what we want. We want to to try to minimize our chances for a wipe. So one other thing that you can see here is that you can also go ahead and grab the high ground that's on the right side of the cliff here, and you can go ahead and just ignite all the oil barrels and destroy them immediately like so, but I would probably recommend against that, because while that is a short-term gain, you can actually go ahead and save these barrels for a mandatory boss fight later on, which will be a lot more helpful. And these guys are only 3 relatively low-level goblins, so it should not be too much of a problem. Now, after you are done clearing these guys out, as we talked about before, you can just go ahead and pick up these barrels, because these will be useful for the mandatory fights in the future, and you can just go ahead and loot around a little bit as well. And once you're done with that, then you can go ahead and start the goblin entrance fight that we talked about earlier. So you can go ahead onto the right here where you have a high ground where the scout is, and then you can go ahead and trigger the fight by killing the scout first. Now, this position is really good, because once you clear that one scout, then your entire team can stay up here completely safe from the wargs, because the wargs have no way of actually climbing up the ladder, and then you can go ahead and have high ground while the goblins here will have low ground against you. Now, as you can see, there is a little war drum over there, but that's not going to matter because we went ahead and destroyed the 3 drunkards first before starting this fight. Now, as we discussed before, because you are grabbing this very advantageous high ground, you want to just go ahead and focus on the ranged characters if you can, because all of the melee characters will not be able to attack you until they get to you. And in a case like this, where the melee character is going off to the side and it is not able to be woken up by anyone else who is able to push them, then you can literally just put him to sleep, and then he'll be out of combat for 2 turns while you casually take down all the wargs at your time's leisure. Now we will get into the meat of the biggest fights in the Goblin Camp. So you can go ahead and use the vines to climb up this place where we entered through the Shattered Sanctum earlier, and you'll see that this is actually really good ground, because when you see those bumps along the roof there, those actually provide cover, where if you are a relative distance away, then it actually makes it very difficult to hit you with a ranged attack as long as you are kind of behind those bumps a little bit. While it's not complete protection, because sometimes if someone is throwing like a javelin at you, then because it has an arc, it can go over, but most of the ranged attacks will not have the angle that is appropriate to shoot, which means that as long as you stay behind those little bumps, most of the time you will be fine. Now, I do like to start the fight around here, because one thing is that there are a bunch of goblin holes that are on the ground, which the goblins will use to try to climb up and get to you, which means that instead of this becoming a 20v4, which it usually would be, this actually ends up becoming more like a game of whack-a-mole, where as they come up through the holes, then you can just go ahead and focus fire on them one by one. And also, because you have a pretty good idea of where they might be coming from, you can also go ahead and block these holes with Cloud of Daggers, which deals an average of 10 damage, which means that a lot of these goblins in honor mode, once they come out and they're hit with the unavoidable damage of Cloud of Daggers, then they'll basically already be more than half dead, which means that you can focus them down relatively easily. Now, as you saw there, because I'm actually not far enough away from the ledge, so the orc is able to throw stones at me, so I'll go ahead and adjust for that in a little bit. But at the same time, as you can see, if I just throw 2 Cloud of Daggers where I know that the goblins are likely going to spawn, then this is going to make the fight a lot easier, because everyone's going to basically be half dead the moment they pop up. So that's basically it. Just stay relatively far away from the ledge and have those Cloud of Daggers ready for the holes. That way, when they start popping up, then you know where to put them, and then you should be able to fight these guys pretty easily as they come up one by one. Now, there are a couple other things you can do to really minimize your chances for wiping in this fight, such as poisoning their alcohol so that a lot of them will die. But this is showing that you can comfortably clear the fight with minimal damage, even if you don't do that. But yeah, if you want to do that, that's totally cool, because then you can minimize your chances a little bit further by preparing a bit more. Now, once you clear out basically all the goblins, then you can go ahead and also take out the orc and the bugbear at your leisure here as well. You have the high ground, so most of the time the bugbear will not be able to figure out how to come up, and also the orc just has no way to come up, which means you'll be pretty safe as long as you shoot and then you just move back a little bit once you're done, and then you just kind of do this with all the characters. Yeah, so as you can see here, we're just kind of poking at it, and then after that we're backing away, and then they cannot attack. And it seems like the bugbear was able to figure out how to go up here, so we're gonna need to focus him down a little bit as he's coming up, but he's also not super strong, so the chances of you wiping is very, very unlikely. And as you can see, the orc has huge HP and also in melee is able to hit really, really hard, so that is going to be a little bit of a problem if you were to be fighting on even footing. But here he can't do anything, he just can't even attack you, he has no way to get up to you, so then all he can do is wait while you rain down cantrips and arrows on them. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead and fast forward until I get to this point where there's just the orc left, and you're just poking him down with fireballs or arrows or whatever you have, and then you're just kind of backing away, and he has absolutely no way to damage you. And then once you get a couple more hits in it, then you are basically done. And for the final fight of this video, so we're going to defeat the Goblin King, because once you defeat the Goblin King, then the entire conflict of Act 1 is resolved. So as you can kind of see me hovering, there's actually a ladder that's on the left side of the wall that you can actually hide up and sneak up behind, but I accidentally get caught here, which means that I have to start the fight without going up to high ground. And well, that's honor mode, sometimes you just gotta roll with the punches. But one thing to note here is that Ragzlin hits really, really hard, so you don't want your actual characters to be facing Ragzlin if possible. This is why you have Halsin, because Halsin has a lot of HP, so then he'll be able to tank a lot of the hits for you while you are doing the damage. So as you can see, now I have Lae'zel and able to go up the ladder there, and I can get that high ground advantage. And there's one other thing that is cool, which is that there's actually a wooden support that's only 1 health. So then if you just go ahead and shoot that down like I just did there, then it will immediately kill the person that's on it. Now this means that you can also kind of do silly things like use minor illusion to attract a lot more NPCs on there. That way you can go ahead and kill all of them at once, or possibly even Dror Ragzlin in 1 hit, but that is if you want to prepare a little bit more. But this is just to show you that even if you don't do that, you can still clear the fight. Now basically all the other allies are not going to be that big of a deal, so the one thing you want to focus on is that every single character, including Halsin, want to go ahead and take down the Goblin King as fast as possible, because he's the only person that can possibly turn this fight out of control. Once you take him down, it's very unlikely that they will actually hurt you, so you want to just focus on taking down Ragzlin. Now in these cases, if they are not hostile towards you, which is not the case here, but if they are not hostile, you can also throw in a couple of barrels to explode them next to Ragzlin, that way you can take him down, or you can go ahead and use the smoke powder bombs as I have done earlier here. Either way, as you can see, I'm using some magic missiles and all of the skills available to try to take down Ragzlin as fast as possible. And as you can see, Halsin is taking the damage for me, which is good. And I'm also going to go ahead and use Shadowheart to create a weapon next to Ragzlin, just to put as much distance between Ragzlin, the actual threat of this fight, away from the team as much as possible. And then once you do that, the cleanup part is relatively easy. Once Ragzlin's dead, then you're definitely not going to wipe in this fight, so you don't have to worry too much. And once you finish off this last guy here, then you are officially done with the hardest part of Honor Mode Baldur's Gate 3, which is the early game, or Act 1. So because we are doing some house cleaning here before we move on to all the battles, the first thing I like to do is hire a dedicated Withers pickpocketer. So basically the hireling is going to stand next to Withers the whole time. So then if we create someone who's going to be very good at sleight of hand, so this will basically be a rogue with a sleight of hand expertise, then we can go ahead and respec Astarion into whatever we want, and we don't really have to worry about the sleight of hand part. And then every time we respec our class with Withers, then we can have this girl basically always have the pickpocket available, so that we can always steal back the gold. There are a lot of really great sleight of hand items, such as the Smuggler's Ring and the Gloves of Thievery, but sometimes you don't want to wear them on your Astarion because you want them to have damage items. So then it's good to have a dedicated pickpocketer and also a sleight of hand specialist. So usually if you can go ahead and convince Lump to fight for you, it's good to pit him against Dror Ragzlin while you go ahead and fight him. But unfortunately I did not pass that persuasion check, so I'm gonna have to beat him if I want his headband. And as with the previous previous honor mode guide, you want to go ahead and rely on sure things. So in this case, that would be Cloud of Daggers, because as we covered previously, Cloud of Daggers has no saving throw. It always hits, and it hits once when you activate it as well as when they start their turn, which means it basically hits twice. And in honor mode, it's really hard to accurately hit enemies because of their higher armor class. So basically this is a really nice way to have reliable damage and good AoE during the fight. And because these ogres have really high damage when attacking with melee, and also they have high health, so you're usually in for a longer-ish battle. So yeah, in this case, you want to go ahead and engage the fight from the roof. And as you can see, kind of guerrilla tactic, you want to go ahead and hit from the roof and then just hide behind the wall, because their main way of attacking you, if you're that high up, is to throw things. But if you're behind a platform, then they just simply don't have the angle to go ahead and throw stones at you, which means that you can just go ahead and hit them and then just move back. And as far as I know, ogres can't climb ladders, which means that basically they have absolutely no way to get to you, which means as long as you start your fight on the roof here, then you'll be completely fine. And as always, I have Shadowheart focusing on Bless. That way we can get some extra accuracy, as that's basically the hardest thing to come by in the fights in honor mode. And I'm also using a spiritual weapon because I know that the fight is going to be in this enclosed area here. But be really mindful, because the spiritual weapon's movement speed is basically non-existent, which means you basically can't expect it to move around at all. But if you're expecting the enemy to stay in one stationary place, then it's a very good addition to the fight. Basically, the rest of this is the same. It's just me hitting it with any kind of ranged attack, and then afterwards moving back around into the wall to make sure that it's really, really hard to set up the angle for them to throw things at me. And then yeah, you just keep throwing them and you should be relatively fine. Of course, they might get a throw in here or there, but you should most of the time not be taking any damage at all, which means that you should be able to clear this pretty easily. Now for the Gnolls fight, it is very tempting to want to go right here and just go check out what is going on, because there's a hyena playing around, but you want to actually go around and hide, because you want to go ahead and engage in these archers right here, because these are the Gnolls that the hyena is going to call for help if you go ahead and talk to the hyena first. So in that case, you're going to have to fight literally every single Gnoll at the same time, which is not going to make the fight very easy. But if you go ahead and fight the Gnolls up here first, then you can go ahead and take down the hyena and the Gnolls downstairs afterwards. And as you can see, I actually landed 2 different Cloud of Daggers in the group of hyenas, and it seems like now there's actually only like 1 left. So this first part can be pretty quick considering how well you land your AoE and how grouped up they are. Now that half of the Gnolls are basically eliminated, now we can go ahead and engage with the bottom, and there are a bunch of Gnolls that are waiting to wake up from these hyenas, so you want to go ahead and try to kill them as fast as possible. And since you're coming from where the Gnoll archers were previously, so you're going down, which means that you will have high ground, so that anytime you go ahead and make a move, you're going to actually have advantage on all of them. So as long as you're not engaging with all of these guys at once, you won't have like 9 Gnolls trying to attack your team, and you'll also have high ground and first turn advantage on them, which means that you'll be able to wipe out most of them before they wake up, and maybe if there are 3 or 4 left, then you can just take them down as well. Now for the Paladins of Tyr, one thing to note is that the moment Anders sees Kith'rak, the fight will begin. So even if you have Kith'rak already, you want to go ahead and just leave her at the bottom, that way she doesn't encounter them. In that case, as you can see, I can talk to Cyril just fine and go ahead and do some trades, and you can also go ahead and buy the smoke powder bomb from her, that way she doesn't throw it at you when we engage her here in a second. And also it's just a really great weapon to have, and also it's a really bad weapon to be used against you, because sometimes if you're clumped up together, that can actually potentially wipe your run. And to push as much advantage as possible, you want to go ahead and use your casters up above here, because Anders is actually quite strong and can potentially one-hit your characters depending on where they're at. And when you're ready to engage the fight, then you can go ahead and bring Kith'rak, and when you go ahead and open the door, basically no dialogue choice, we'll go ahead and start the fight. fight. And since Anders is the boss, he is by far the most dangerous character in this fight. So you want to go ahead and focus him down as fast as you can, because if anyone is going to down your characters, it's going to be Anders smiting them. So as you can see, I'm dropping everything I have. I'm dropping the Circle of Daggers. I'm hasting into magic missiles as well into Anders, and I'm also dropping the spiritual weapon next to Anders. I'm basically doing everything I can to keep him away from smiting my characters. And when my melee characters are available, then I move them in and also try to do the max output damage I possibly can into Anders. So I'm going here with a double hit or the monk, as well as later I'll bring in Karlach to go ahead and throw things at him. And there you go, and Anders is dead. And once he's dead, then the fight is basically won. You're just doing cleanup at that point, and the chance of you wiping is 0. Also, one thing to note about honor mode is that I feel like it just has somehow more bugs than if you were to do a normal campaign. So as you can see here, Cyril is like stuck in the box and is just like teabagging the box over and over. These things just are gonna happen, so you're just gonna have to roll with the punches and just try your best, and not everything is gonna go perfect as coded even, and because of some meta circumstance you might not output as much damage as you should have been able to because something weird happens in the game. I feel like that's just something that happens a lot in honor mode. I'm not sure why it's like this, but yeah, it's just something to keep in mind. And also another thing to note about honor mode is that everything is so expensive. So the economy is pretty tight, and sometimes if you don't have enough money saved up and there's a premium item for a trader, you might just simply not have enough resources to buy it, which is kind of crazy. So you want to go ahead and utilize the attitude mechanic as well as the persuasion to try to save as much money as possible while trying to get the gear that you want. So this means that ideally you want to have a character that you can reset to level 1 and level back up multiple times throughout the campaign. So for this role I picked Astarion because it's a lot easier to level up a rogue all the way back up than it is a spellcaster where you have to redecide all the spells over and over again. And the reason why you go ahead and reset a character to 1 is that the lower the character's level is, the less they'll have to pay to increase the attitudes to the max level of 100. For example, at level 1, you can go ahead and just pay 400 gold as I am doing here, but such as in level 12, you'll have to pay 4,500 gold to get the trader to increase the attitude by the same amount. It's important to note that the persuasion and the attitude points that account for the discount apply for both buying and selling items. So generally, if you have more than 2,000 gold worth of transaction, whether it's selling or buying, then it'll usually be worth it to pay the extra 400 gold to get the attitude up to 100. And also the attitude does not carry over to the rest of the party, so the attitude only applies to one person. So for example, if Astarion has an attitude 100 with Dammon, that doesn't actually mean that anyone else approaching Dammon is also going to have the 100 attitude. So that's only going to apply to Astarion, which basically means you always want to engage with Astarion or whoever your dedicated trader is. That way you can keep that maximum attitude that you paid 400 gold for. And also in general, it's just good to max attitude with Dammon just because he's available in Act 1 and 2 and 3, which means that he will be a nice person that you can always go to sell everything. Now, as you can see here, Aaron only has 800 gold, which means that if I try to sell all my wares at the same time, he actually doesn't have enough money for it, but that's okay. You can actually just go ahead and sell the select items, and then you can just go ahead and partial rest for no resources at all. And then after that, Aaron will have some more money, which means that we can go ahead and sell the rest of the wares. It's just going to take a couple of days of partial rest, but it's not going to actually take any resources. While maximizing trader attitudes, we can also go ahead and do that with Auntie Ethel, because as a legendary hag, she has one of the best resources in the entire game, which is the Elixir of Hill Giant Strength. So as we did before, we're going to go ahead and reset Astarion to 1 with that max charisma and that persuasion expertise, and then we're going to go ahead and just take a lot of the wares that we're going to need, and we're going to go to Auntie Ethel, and we're going to go and pay 400 gold to make sure that she has the maximum attitude, because we're going to be buying a lot of elixirs. The elixir is very, very beneficial for strength specific characters or characters that benefit from 4 different stats at once, because you always want to have good constitution and dexterity, but sometimes you might also be using charisma or wisdom, but also you want to scale with your strength as well. So that would be such things as open hand monk, which requires you to have high wisdom and high strength, or swords bard, which also requires you to have high charisma but also want high strength to scale off of the titan string bow later on. Basically, there are a lot of builds that would like to have 4 stats that are very high, so this is a great place to stock up on them. And once you stock up here, you basically don't have to do it for the entire campaign. That's how much you can actually buy. Now, I was trying to trade with Astarion, but I didn't actually have the dialogue option to show the wares, so I was trying to go back and forth here, but I realized that you actually don't even need the dialogue option to actually trade with Auntie Ethel, because you can actually just engage in dialogue with her first, and then on the bottom left there is a trade button, which means that you can trade even if you don't have the dialogue option to do so. So we're going to go ahead and give her 400 gold. Now she has maximum attitude, which means we can go ahead and buy all the hill giant strength and the invisibility potion and the health potions that we want at a discount. And the last thing to finish this puzzle is that every single time you level up, then Auntie Ethel will restock on those elixirs, which basically means that even though it's a little annoying, you only need to do it once. But if you go ahead and level your other 3 companions to level 1, and then you come back here to trade, then you'll basically have 9 level ups, and you'll have 3 elixirs every single time you level up, because you level up and then you quit out of the menu, and then you buy 3 elixirs, and then you level up again, and you just kind of repeat this process, which means you'll be able to grab 27 elixirs. And because elixirs are once per long rest, and you don't long rest like that much, so then once you have 27, or sometimes like I like to keep maybe like 2 stacks, so that would be around 40, then you won't have to worry about it ever again. Now, of course, this is not the only place you can get strength elixirs. You can actually buy them throughout the game, so then you'll be able to buy some in the Underdark as well, but it's just good to have all of them in one place. That way you just never have to worry about it again, and then every time you long rest, then you can just go ahead and take a sip of the 40 different elixirs that you have. So as you can see, that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm setting Lae'zel back to 1, and then I'm switching to Kith'rak, and then I'm setting Kith'rak back to 1, and then I'm switching to Astarion, and then I already set him back to 1 actually. Now we can just go ahead and go to Auntie Ethel, buy 3, level 1, buy 3 level 1, and then just keep doing it until we have 27 Hill Giant Strength elixirs. Admittedly, it takes a little bit of time, but it's something that you basically only have to do once the entire campaign. And, you know, as everyone knows, the Baldur's Gate campaigns are like 50 to 100 hours long. So just taking like, you know, maybe like 5 to 7 minutes to do this is not that big of a deal. And I'm not saying everyone has to do it. It's just something that I'm showing you guys that I'm doing just to set up for the axe ahead. And as you can see, now I have a lot of Hill Giant strengths, and I will never need it again. Now for the Flind fight, I would highly recommend bringing a cleric that is carrying calm emotions, because basically the Gnolls will be trying to stack rage over time, and when they're able to stack it for long enough, that's when we get the infamous Gnolls archers who can do multi-attacks, which are super devastating and can turn the fight out of control very quickly. So as you can see here, you want to take this fight pretty seriously. As you can see, with Kith'rak has the Infernal Fury with the soul coin ready to go, as well as everyone has their elixirs ready to go. And then now you want to go ahead and slowly approach from the back here instead of approaching them directly. I think I'm checking my statuses for the umpteenth time just to make sure that I am ready for this battle. And then now we're going to go ahead and approach from the back. And as you can see, there's the Gnoll there. And you want to go ahead and grab this high ground on the right side if you can with the characters that you know are going to do ranged attacks. And because I'm going to basically engage the fight right in front of their face, so then this is also very likely to trigger a surprise round, which means that all of their turns are skipped for this first round, which is very good. Now, if you have the calm emotions ready, then honestly, the archers and the rest of the gnolls are actually not that big of a deal. So the highest priority here is you want to basically kill Flind as fast as humanly possible, because basically he's the only key player who can turn this fight out of control with all his paralyzed attacks and everything. So very similar to the Anders fight, basically you want to drop every single thing you can onto Flind if possible. But of course, I can't actually reach Flind here because I blocked myself with the Cloud of Daggers. I probably shouldn't have done that, but I do have the spiritual weapons on him and the Cloud of Daggers, so it's going to be very, very hard for him to move away from that spot towards me. And I'm even coming out with Shadowheart, throwing a smoke powder bomb for her action just to do as much damage as possible. Now, usually I would have her using Bless, that way everyone is getting accuracy, but she's going to be concentrating on something much more important, which is Calm Emotion, to make sure that these other gnolls don't get their rage stacks up high enough that they can do multi-attacks. And as you can see here, now the archer is doing Seething Fury, and also the second archer is doing Seething Fury. And after we attack Flind, then we want to go ahead and drop the Seething Fury using Calm Emotions. So Calm Emotions coming down. As you can see, Seething Fury, in one turn he's going to be able to use a multi-attack, but that is not the case because I'm going to now go ahead and drop Calm Emotions onto everyone. And now Seething Fury is gone, which means now he's completely calmed. He can't do the Fury, which means he'll only be able to attack once per turn, which means that they basically aren't a big deal anymore. And now that Flind is dead, because we were focusing him as hard as humanly possible in the very beginning, so then these guys at this point are basically just chill enemies to clean up at the very end of the fight. So after Flind is dead and after they have calm emotions, which means that these monsters cannot do multi-attacks, then the chance of you wiping is basically 0. So at this point, we're just playing cleanup with Lae'zel as the open hand monk, which means that she has the Tavern Brawler, which adds a +5 to her attack rolls, which is another fancy way to just say that she is now adding +25% to her attacks. And the same thing for Karlach. She also has the Tavern Brawler as a thrower, so then she also has a +25% chance, which means that the cleanup here is pretty easy. Now, this isn't a fight per se, but I have wiped here before, which is why I'm going to include it, which is the Zhentarim Hideout. Now, of course, you can just walk in, and if you save Rugen or if you have the package, then you can just walk in here. But the one thing to note is that there are a lot of explosive barrels down here, and sometimes even if you're just walking through, maybe some weird fire thing happens, and then that can just completely explode everything, and then all 4 of your team members can die at the same time. And in an honor mode run, that means your entire team just gets wiped. So as you can see there, you want to go ahead and maybe just take one person and explore the bottom, or just make sure one person is at least at the top. That way you don't have a chance of completely wiping, because that has happened to me before, and I didn't even use any fire skills. I just walked through and then it just exploded and everyone died. So it's very dangerous, which is why I wanted to put in here to make sure that people avoid it. Also, one other thing to note is that the Titan string bow is here, but I think a lot of people already know that it's one of the best weapons in the game. But another thing is you want to go ahead and pick up as many invisibility potions as possible, because these are basically your get out of jail free cards. So you want to collect as much as possible in an honor mode run. Also, the Githyankies in the mountain pass here are pretty dangerous, but you don't have to fight them. So you just want to go ahead and bring Lae'zel, because if you do, then you can just pass a easy 10 DC persuasion check, which you should be able to pass very easily if you have a nice yapper on your team. And you just go ahead and let Lae'zel go first, and then after that let Lae'zel talk, and then you just persuade her to go along with everything, and then you just need to pass a nice DC 10, which should be very easy if you have a nice yapper. If you don't have Lae'zel, then this is going to be a lot more difficult, because the Kith'rak is going to try to read your mind using detect thoughts, and you're going to have to pass a lot more persuasion checks that are going to be higher than 10 because he doesn't trust you. So yeah, just bring a yapper and Lae'zel and you should be good for this fight. Now for the Redcaps, you definitely want to clear these first, because if you engage with Ethel before that, then they're going to come join and make the fight much more difficult. So you basically just want to start in this little platform here. That way you get the high ground around on the 3 sheep slash red caps that are on the ground, and you just want to wait for the sheep to come in, and then you want to go in and enter in turn-based mode and go ahead and start. And one thing about this is that when the swamp turns bad, then this is going to surprise your party. So this is a forced surprise fight, but luckily we have 2 members who have alert. This is why alert is so good in honor mode, because basically there are a lot of forced surprise fights in Baldur's Gate, which means that if you have at least a couple people on alert, then that means that you actually won't have that much of a disadvantage. If you can see here, I actually just made a speed potion in the middle of the battle. That's also something that you can do, which is just in the middle of the battle, if you need, let's say, a speed potion, or let's say you want to make like an elixir of bloodthirst or anything like that, then you can just go ahead and make it like just on your turn and then just have them drink it right then and there. So you actually don't have to commit resources to see like, do I need this potion or this potion? And like, yeah, you can just conserve your resources and then wait until the time is right and then just decide what potion would be best for you and then just craft it right there, and then you can just drink it. And then from here, as you guys can see, this is just basics. We're just on high ground to gain the advantage, and then we're using reliable sources of damage such as out of daggers, magic missiles, and tavern brawler, which increases accuracy quite a lot. Now we can go ahead and fight Ethel, and these red caps will not join us, which is very good. Now for the Ethel fight, I went ahead and brought Gale with 19 intelligence, no alert, and with hold person and arcane lock for the stairs. If you go behind this fireplace, there's going to be a staircase that Auntie Ethel tries to escape to when she's running low, and you can go ahead and arcane lock. But I've also been told that it doesn't work in honor mode, so I wanted to go ahead and try it. But before we start the battle, we do want to go ahead and just make sure that everyone is positioned well. So we have the ranged characters in the high ground upstairs, and now I'm going to go ahead and try to cast hold person with 40%. And I actually get really lucky and it actually lands, which means that now we have a chance to just go ahead and burst down Auntie Ethel as fast as humanly possible, because if we can burst her down in one turn, then technically she dies right here and then we don't have to worry about it anymore. But I actually made kind of a big mistake actually, which is that I just didn't long rest, which means that my sorcerer has 0 spell slots, so he's just like not ready for this battle at all. As you can see here, yeah, I'm just like checking my spell slots and it's all empty. And I'm just like trying to look at scrolls to see if there's maybe a scroll that I can use for a source of damage, because I don't actually have any damage. So yeah, I mean, this goes without saying, but don't be like me and actually long rest before all of your major encounters. But yeah, I have Gale ready next to the stairs just in case she breaks out, and I'm going to go ahead and arcane lock the stairs. And even though I don't have any spell slots, I do have a scroll of fireball, which means I will be able to do some damage. I just need Kith'rak to move out of the way, that way she doesn't get hit by it. And then yeah, I just go ahead and throw my fireball because I don't have any spell slots. But we're just rolling with the punches as we do in honor mode, and I see that I have Elixir of Arcane Cultivation, which means I can get 1 level 1 spell slot, which means I can use magic missiles next turn. But I get insanely lucky here because Ethel actually misses her saving throw, which means she's actually in hold person for another turn, which means now I can definitely kill her. And yeah, so I just get super lucky and actually just kill her on the first try there. This is definitely not the usual result, so I will go ahead and explain some tips for honor mode for Auntie Ethel, because this is definitely not going to be most people. One of the things is that Gale is going to be really great for this fight, because every single time a spell is cast, then Auntie Ethel is going to create a clone of herself. So higher spell levels is going to create more clones, which means that you actually want to limit the number of spell casts that you do, because you don't want too many clones to be summoned. So the one that you actually want to use is level 1 magic missile, because the magic missile is going to be able to kill 3 clones, and then because it's a level 1 spell slot, it's going to create 1 more clone, which means that it's basically a net -2 on the clones. And other than that, you want to go ahead and bring a lot of martial classes that don't rely a lot on spell slots and can still do a lot of damage. And also Auntie Ethel on her turn can create more duplicates and shuffle herself around within them. But if you go ahead and inspect each of the clones, then you will actually be able to find the difference between the real one and the fake one. So just make sure to pay attention to inspecting each of the clones. Now for the final fight of this map, we're going to go ahead and fight the Spider Matriarch, which I think is probably the hardest boss of this entire map. We're going to just go ahead and pick up the Infernal Iron here really quick. And before we fight the Spider Matriarch, we're going to have to face basically the appetizer, which is going to be the 4 spiders that show you the mechanics of what is to come. You can just go ahead and break down the wall and enter, and basically they'll just come to you the moment you step on the web. It's not a big deal, and then you can just go ahead and start the fight. Now these guys aren't that big of a deal, so there really isn't that much like advantage to push. You just stick to the basics of trying to focus down one enemy at a time for everyone. Probably no way to wipe in this fight. It should be fine. It's basically just introducing you to the 2 mechanics that are going to come up, which is the Ettercaps show you that it's infested, which basically is a condition that deals damage to you every turn unless you are purging it with acid or fire. And it's showing you the phase spiders, which is just showing you that the spiders to come, they can basically just teleport. Now, getting in-webbed is not a huge deal. You're just not able to move for a turn, but also they're just going to come to you, so it's not going to be a big thing. When you can, just go ahead and move yourself off the web and then try to fight on the normal ground. Now, because Lae'zel did take a lot of punishment here, she does end up getting down, and this is a good time to talk about Healing Word. So this is why we carry a cleric with us, because we can use Healing Word as a bonus action, and it's actually ranged, which means that we can go ahead and revive the character. Now, I don't actually use it here just because I just throw a potion because I want to try to conserve resources as much as I can, but this is the exact type of moments where it would be good to have Healing Word, because that way you can heal someone who has been downed in battle. Even if they're far away, you don't have to walk up to them and you don't have to spend your primary action to bring them up to speed. Now for the scary main boss fight, you do want to grab something which is over here in this heavy chest, which is the Spider Step Boots, which basically allow you to walk on the spider webs and never trigger the in-web, which means that no one is alerted of your position. And you want this because you want to try to kill all of the spider eggs before the fight if possible, because in honor mode the Matriarch has this insane legendary action which basically makes it so that after the spiderlings hatch, after the little eggs hatch within the battle, if you didn't kill them in advance, if you attack any of them, then the Matriarch can just entomb you, which means they basically just insta-paralyze you for 3 turns, and then after that the tomb will burst and deal 45 damage on average, which basically means it can just one-hit kill like a party member. And as the previous fight kind of hinted, you can go ahead and clean this or clear this using fire or acid. Now I'm going to clear the last of the spider egg sac over there. So that's 1 out of the 3 egg sac groups. So then usually you just want to take 1 person, because if you get caught off and everyone dies, then obviously that's a bad result. Yeah, so here is the second egg sac. And even though it's kind of crazy, like as long as your character doesn't enter a line of sight, it doesn't seem like the spider minds that much. So yeah, there you go. Now the second sac is dead, and now the third sac is the hardest one because it's the one that's right under the Matriarch. It's the one she's just directly guarding it. So we're just gonna wait for her to walk away, and then we're gonna just destroy the one that's closest to us. And okay, you cannot hide behind that boulder. I thought you can hide behind it, but nope. But then yeah, we're just gonna wait for it to walk away, and then we're just gonna quickly shoot, and then we're gonna walk back again, check the line of sight, and then when we have the opportunity, then shoot it down. And then I think there's 1 more, and then the third egg sac will be destroyed. So yeah, this is why we need the spider boots, because if we didn't have the boots, we would not be able to do this. There you go. Now all the children are dead, which means that there's no chance of us getting legendary action entombed, paralyzed, and taking 40 or upwards to 80 damage with her super insane legendary action, which just completely paralyzes the team member. Now there's also one other thing, which is that the walkways here are weak to fire, which means that we can actually just wait for the Matriarch to come in and we can just shoot like that. that, and that actually hits for 40 damage of falling, which means that you can actually take down a huge chunk of health even before you start the battle. Now, if for some reason you didn't kill the children before you engaged in the battle, then at that point you're just gonna have to try your best to take down the Matriarch as fast as you can first, because if you touch any of the children, then you're gonna get hit with the Entomb immediately, and that means you're gonna have from 4 party members to 3, and then sometimes from 3 party members to 2, and then your entire team can potentially wipe, and you might not even be able to escape because you can't drink the invisibility potion. But if you kill the children, then you should be relatively fine, and then you should just focus down the Matriarch as fast as you humanly can, and then afterwards you're just gonna play cleanup with the other 2 face spiders. That should be pretty chill. Also, a good elixir for this fight is the one with poison resistance, because all of these spiders shoot poison. But if you kill the children first, then you'll probably have a huge advantage in this battle anyways, so then you probably don't need it, as I didn't drink any here, but it definitely does help if you want to face it, if you want to feel like a little bit more safe. And there you go. And now the Matriarch is dead, so now we're just playing cleanup, and at this point the chances of you wiping is basically 0, because I mean these 2 guys are decently strong, but they're not strong enough to down a party and kill the entire party. That's mainly the Matriarch, so you want to go ahead and kill her first. And we just get that one last hit in, and there you go. And that's how you fight the Spider Matriarch. It is a pretty difficult battle, so don't be afraid if you need to retreat and drink an invisibility potion and get withers to revive your whole party and try again, because that has happened to me before multiple times. So this is a hard fight. But yeah, if you kill the spiderlings, then this should be manageable. Okay, and we are now in the Underdark. So the first mandatory fight of the Underdark is the Minotaur fight, so we're just gonna go ahead and get started. I don't think this is a fight that most people would have trouble with, but it is usually a mandatory one that you kind of encounter by force. But as long as you keep a healthy distance and engage with your marshals and make sure to have your ranged characters relatively far away, then this should not be too much of a hard fight. I put all of my movement speed items on my one frontline character, which is Lae'zel with Monk, so she has like 23 movement speed or something like that, because everyone else can attack from a distance, so it's not a big problem. Now they do have a leap that can knock you prone, but as long as you have your front line in the front, then they should be able to engage with that, and then that way your whole party, as long as they're not stuck together, they're not all getting hit by the prone at once. So as you can see here, now we have Lae'zel keeping him in the front while everyone else is attacking. It's a pretty straightforward fight. It's just here for obligatory purposes more than anything. Now there are these explosive mushrooms, so you do want to go ahead and blow these up from a distance, like so. And you can just wait for the air to clear, and there you go. Just do it one more time, and you can go ahead and enter the Myconid Colony. Now you do require like a small persuasion check, but it's just a 5, so I do roll a critical failure, but that's what inspiration is for. And then you just go in and walk in, and it's all good. Now this isn't a fight, but there are a lot of great items here, so I will be going over just a little bit of what I'll be picking up or the build. That way everyone kind of knows where I am going with these characters. Now the first item of interest is the Pearl of Power Amulet, which you can get after completing Omelem's quest. Now this is really good because it lets you restore a level 3 spell slot in this level of the game, which basically means that you can cast like an extra twin haste or something like that. Now another thing that's great on basically every build is the Caustic Band, which we're going to get soon. But we're going to go ahead and use the same trick we discussed earlier, resetting Asterion to level 1, and then we're going to go ahead and max out the attitude of the trader. She's going to show up in Act 3 as well, so it's good to just go ahead and do it now. And yeah, so we're just going to talk to her and go ahead and give her the 400 gold as usual, which maxes out. And now that it's maxed out, then we can go ahead and buy our Caustic Band. Oh, but I did forget to level up, so afterwards you want to go ahead and level up because this increases your proficiencies. So higher level just means that you'll have higher persuasion, which means that items will be cheaper. So then now the Caustic Band is cheaper than before, so then we can go ahead and buy it. And also because Kith'rak has a Tavern Brawler thrower build, so we also get a nice reward if we go ahead and save her husband. So we're going to just go ahead and do that really quick. Just be careful to not approach too fast here. You want to go ahead and trigger the dialogue without actually triggering all these bibber bangs that are everywhere. So just going to walk up a little bit at a time, and then the dialogue should trigger. Now I do have a Scroll of Misty Step, so I can just go ahead and throw him that as long as I pass this strength check. But in a moment, I will go ahead and show you how to do it if you don't have that Scroll of Misty Step with you. Yeah, so again, you want to be careful not to trigger the Bibberbangs, and you just go ahead and talk to him. Now, the thing about Bibberbangs is that the poisonous clouds they create, while they do like a little bit of damage, it's not like a huge deal. They're not going to kill you or anything. But the big thing is that they're highly flammable, and there is one fire source, a loose torch. So basically, all you need to do is pick up the torch, and then of course the Bibberbangs are going to trigger, but that should be totally fine because you might take like a little bit of poison damage, but as long as the one fire source, which is the torch, has been taken before they're triggered, then it's not going to be a huge deal. So as you can see, Karlach is taking a little bit of damage, but it's not too bad. But if that torch was there when the Bibberbangs triggered, then the entire thing would go up in flames. So we definitely don't want that. So like for example, like that, if we trigger the Bibberbangs upstairs and then we have the fire, then it just completely explodes everything. Once we rescue Balin, then we can go ahead and pick up our reward, which is going to be the Gloves of Uninhibited Kushiko, which basically adds a roughly 2 additional damage to the throws, and it's a glove that you can wear. So yeah, we're just going to go ahead and pick that up. And as many of you can gather, in honor mode, accuracy is king, and that means that Tavern Brawler is super good because it adds a plus 25% to throws and to bare hand attacks, which means that instead of the usual 50, 60, or sometimes even 40% accuracy when attacking the bosses, actually ends up being like 80 to sometimes even 95%. Now for the Dwegar fight, one tip is that you don't want to go ahead and bring Glut because he's a Myconid and they're enemies, which means that the moment that you come in with the Myconid, then the fight is going to start immediately, but I left him behind. So now I can go ahead and persuade him to not attack me. That way I can go ahead and find a more advantageous position. So yeah, I'm just going to tell him that I'm going to help him, and then that way we can go down the ladder and then up the ladder this way, and also position our marshal right next to Gek. And as you can see, a lot of BG3 fights are similar to this, where the huge threat is basically there's one boss character who can spin the fight out of control, and in this case it's Gek. So then you basically want to focus him down as fast as he can, that way he can get the least amount of actions, and then once he's down, then the rest should be relatively cake. So yeah, we're gonna just stick with the basics. We're gonna use Bless, and then we're gonna use our high accuracy attackers, and then we're just gonna go ahead and take him down as fast as we can. And then once he is dead, then you basically can't wipe from that point. So then you just keep throwing your skills at them, and their damage output isn't big enough, so you'll just kill them eventually. Another reason why Berserker is so popular in honor mode is because, as we'll see shortly, the enraged throw has no saving throw for knocking a target prone, which basically means that when they are prone, then they'll be easier to hit, but even more importantly, they won't be able to take any reactions, which is very important in honor mode because there are a lot of dangerous reactions that a lot of bosses can use. With a Tavern Brawler adding 25% and having absolutely no saving throw against the prone, it's basically a very close to 100% chance of you landing something that is a guaranteed condition. So this is why I would recommend it if a lot of people haven't played it before or still want to just get their golden dice. And we have just one last Dwegar here, so we can just land our final attack while it's hiding up there, and we should be done with this fight. So I'll just go ahead and bring in Karlach with the Frenzy Throw and 95%, and there you go. And to complete Amelim's quest so that we can get our Pearl of Power Amulet, which I think is super good because it gives you a level 3 spell slot, which is very good at this stage of the game. You basically want to bring in your Resident Gale because these towers are weak to electric damage. So we're just going to go ahead and keep throwing electricity because the electric can down them in one hit, even in honor mode. So I'll just go ahead and do that. And there are 4 constructs in this tower that you do need to worry about. So basically once you clear those 4, then you'll be completely fine. So we'll just open the door and then we'll go ahead and take these 2 down with lightning damage as well. And then I'll go ahead and show you how to quickly solve Amelim's quest. That way you can get that nice item for yourself as well. So after the 2 are down, then you can go ahead and bring the rest of your team. Go ahead and drop off Gale real quick because he's very injured from the arcane turrets. And then afterwards, all you need to do is go straight. So just walk around the elevator and then just go through the door. And then here you're going to need Featherfall to go all the way down to the bottom floor, which then will be ascending one at a time. So once you cast Featherfall, then you would want to go ahead and pick up this Susser Flower because you're going to need this to power the tower itself. So there's a little lock, so you can just go ahead and lockpick that, and then go ahead and just put the Susser Flower into this area. Now you're going to need to get some mushrooms. So what you want to do here is you want to go up the stairs, and then there's a way down, but there's no actual way to get there. But if you just Misty Step and then open the lever from the other side, then now the rest of your team can go ahead and join you. You can visually see it, but you cannot physically go there. So then in this case, a spell like Misty Step is super good. And then once one person opens it from the other side, everyone can come in. And then this is where we can pick up the first of the mushrooms, which is the Tongue of Madness. Now these do need to be freshly picked. So after the quest, then you can just go ahead into the tower to pick this up. And then afterwards, now we just need the Tin Mask Spores, which is also very conveniently in the tower. So you just want to go ahead and ascend a couple times, and then you'll go ahead into this area where all the laboratory alchemy stuff is being done. And then there you go. And once you pick up the Tin Mask Spores, then you can just fast travel back to the Myconid Colony, and then you'll be able to give it back to Amelum. Now you do get a special tadpole power from the person who drinks the potion, and it doesn't actually matter if you win the saving throw or not, because if you lose the saving throw, then you just get a temporary debuff, so it's not a huge deal. You can just wait it out and then it'll go away on its own. But I don't feel like Survival Instinct is that particularly good because it requires an action. But what is really good is that after you complete this quest line, you will be able to access his shop, which sells very, very good items for certain builds. And now we are able to get our Pearl of Power Amulet, which we can go ahead and equip to be able to cast an extra haste or whatever you want throughout the playthrough. Another thing I like to do when I'm fighting Nier in the Underdark is that because he is a spellcaster, so the Susser Flower is actually very effective against him, because within the Susser Flower, no one can cast any spells. So usually I have my monk carry this with them. That way, when the monk is engaged with Nier, then Nier has to walk away, which will cause a reaction before he can actually do anything at all. Now you can go even one step further, where if you take the Susser Flower and then you can go ahead and create a weapon, then that weapon will silence Nier, which will also help the fight a lot. But I feel like that's quite a lot of investment, so this is kind of like a halfway measure where everyone can do it. All you gotta do is just pick up the Susser Flower and it'll help you against the spellcaster. Now another thing you definitely want to do for the Nier fight is talk to this guy right here that's on the side, because if you convince him to fight with you, then that will make the upcoming fight a lot easier. But I did mess up a little bit, as we will see, so this ends up not mattering, but it is still very, very important, and I would recommend to do every time you fight Nier, because this will basically howl the enemy forces and you will have more allies fighting for you, which will make the fight much, much easier, which ends up not happening because I mess up a little bit in the future. But yeah, let's just focus on this quest for now. You want to go ahead and also take out the Eye of the Absolute, the Scrying Eye, and as we covered in the last video, this is basically almost indestructible by other damage in honor mode. So I'm gonna bring in our resident wizard Gale here, and then that way we can have Thunder Wave to destroy him, or Chromatic Orb. This orb is going to be following you most of the time, so then you can just go ahead and lead him into the corner where there's no one else that's going to witness this crime, and then afterwards you can just go ahead and destroy him with a Thunder Spell. And then after you take out the Eye, then now you'll be able to fight Nier, and usually, because at this point I have convinced the other Dweguard to fight for me, so then this will basically cut the army by half and have allies for us who can tank for us while we fight. Now this is where I went wrong. I didn't know this, but you definitely should not use a smoke powder barrel or satchel, because these will leave burning surfaces which will automatically aggro the entire camp. So you actually want to use smoke powder bombs specifically. You don't want to use satchels or barrels, because that will aggro every single person, which I did not know until this moment, because I usually just use a couple bombs to clear it, and I didn't know there would be a difference. But yeah, so there is a flammable surface, so the moment Nier walks out, the entire camp is aggroed, and I don't get a dialogue check to be able to, signal to the Dweguard that I convinced that it's time for them to fight for me. So then now, even though I was supposed to fight half of these guys, I'm going to have to fight every single person person, which is, I mean, this is just honor mode. These things just happen and we just gotta roll with the punches. So there are a couple dangers to note here for this fight, and the main one is the lava. So the lava will do an average of around 30 damage and also upwards of 60 damage when you step into it and also at the beginning of your turn. So you definitely do not want your character to fall into this, because then even if they're downed, it would be extremely hard to revive them back, because even if you use healing word and maybe heal them for like 4 HP, then at the beginning of their turn they'll just die again. And as you can see here, as we discussed, even though we can't negate his legendary action with silence, we can go ahead and prevent him from using spells while the monk is right in front of the face, because she is holding a sussy flower. Now ideally Nier would come all the way out, that way all 4 characters can converge onto him, because he is the main threat of this fight, but we cannot do that here. Other than that, there are actually still very big fights other than Nier, which is pretty unique actually, which is we do need to deal with 2 Mind Masters. Now these guys are super dangerous because they can go ahead and dominate your teammates, which means that they'll entirely lose their action economy. And as you can see there, now Nier had to walk away and flee into the poison, which means he not only takes the 13 damage from having to walk away from Lae'zel, but he also takes the 13 reaction damage. And as you can see, our poor Shadowheart is actually being Mind Mastered by one of them. The other Mind Master has been taken down. So luckily it's not too bad of a situation, because it would be very bad if 2 teammates are Mind Mastered, because then it will turn into like a 2v20 situation, which is not great. Now we will focus on taking down the other Mind Master here very soon. But yeah, I would say the main thing is just make sure not to be like me and don't use a smoke powder barrel or satchel. Make sure to use a smoke powder bomb, because otherwise, as you can see, I convinced the Dwagars to fight for me, but they didn't come through. And also this makes the fight more than twice as hard, because you're fighting twice as many people and there's no allies fighting for you. But luckily we are able to still pull through from this situation, because as you can see, Karlach with the Tavern Brawler has 95% chance to hit every single person basically in this fight, and is hasted by the Sorcerer, which means that she will be able to output a lot of damage, so we will be able to beat them over time, even though there are quite a lot of them. One other thing to note about Honor Mode is that when you are hasted, then you actually don't benefit from extra attack, which means usually when you're hasted in any other mode, you'll be able to use that one extra action you get to throw off maybe 2 or sometimes even 3 attacks, but you can only do 1. But even so, haste is super good, especially when the Sorcerer is twin hasting, then basically he's generating 2 actions or 2 extra attacks for the highest damage dealers, so it's still very good even in Honor Mode. Another thing for this fight, which you probably won't have to do if you don't make my mistake, but if you do, is you can go ahead and grab high ground up the ladder right here, but usually this won't be necessary, because you will just wait for Nier to come out, and then every single person is just going to go ahead and jump Nier, and then you're going to have the Dwagars be able to fight for you. Other than that, if you are in this specific situation where maybe you messed up and other people are aggroed every single person, then yeah, you can go ahead and use that ladder to the left there and grab high ground, which would increase your accuracy and decrease everyone else's accuracy. Now this fight is quite lengthy, so I'm going to skip ahead, but yeah, the main thing is you want to focus on Nier as much as possible, and afterwards you want to go ahead and take down the Mind Masters as well, because they are going to straight up take away your actions or your turns, and you want to go ahead and convince the Dwagars to fight for you before we enter this fight. And last but definitely not least, you want to use smoke powder or bombs, and you don't want to use satchels or barrels, anything that leaves a fiery surface. So basically you're left with smoke powder bombs. Now with movie magic, we only have 1 enemy left. As we can see, we're using our broken frenzy throw, which basically allows us to hit prone as long as we land the attack, and now we went ahead and cleared the Nier fight. Now for those of you who want to rescue Barkus, because he's such a sweet character, you do have a little bit of a timer on this fight. So if you do go ahead and keep on sleeping and ending the day, then Nier will die in the cave-in with all the poison. He will die, so you don't have to fight him. But the bad thing is that the Dwagars will then go ahead and take all the gnomes, including Barkus, which means that you actually won't be able to save him. Now last but absolutely not least, we're going to cover the Grim Forge and Grim Fight. So it's actually super chill to get there. There's a lot of puzzles that you need to do, but you can also just go ahead and Misty Step here on the side where you killed all the Dwagars, and then just have one person in the waypoint, which means everyone can just come in, and then we're gonna have to fight a little bit before just so that we can grab those mithril ores. This fight is super chill. There's 4 of them and they don't do too much damage, so no chance to wipe in this specific fight. But while we're here, I do want to say that we want to go ahead and pick up the heavy mold, which I did previously right after I Misty stepped into this area, because the heavy armor variant of the mithril is insanely good, as it has very high DC and also makes you immune to critical hits, which basically means that you are no longer at the mercy of RNG, or at least a little bit less. So in this specific fight, you don't actually have to do much. Even if you don't have high ground, you should be completely fine. There's only 4 of them and they don't do too much damage. Once you're done with this fight, then you will be able to come off to the side here and grab the first mithril ore, which is going to be very good. Now the second mini fight is actually somewhat more difficult. I don't think that people will wipe, but it is pretty mandatory, as you will need to get the ore. And one other thing is that this is a forced surprise fight. So ideally you would want to have just one person walk in there first and then have the rest of the team join later, as these guys explode when they die. And if you bring the companions later on, then they can go ahead and grab high ground and attack from a distance, which means that you can minimize the damage that your team as a whole will take for this fight. That's basically it. Just grab high ground and get ready for the surprise, and don't bunch up because they explode when they die. When you're done, then you can just go ahead and slowly make your way up to the right, and you can find the second mithril ore. There are only 2 in the game, which means now we can go ahead and fight the final boss, which is the scary Grim of Honor mode. Now when you're taking him on in Honor mode, he is extremely scary because not only is he hard to hit and he resists everything, but also he has AoE that hits your whole party every time you damage him, so he truly is a tank. But you actually don't have to fight him directly at all. So with Mage Hand, you can actually just activate the entire mechanical platform as seen here. When you're in turn-based mode, it will take a couple turns for the platform to actually lower, and you do require the mold and also the ore to actually be placed inside before it's able to lower. Once you lower it, then you can just activate the lava and then the fight will begin. At this point, there's actually no way for Grim to hit you at all because you are not on the platform. So even in honor mode with this absolute tank of a monster, you are actually completely safe. But there are a couple monsters that will come out that will be able to damage you, but we will get to that when they actually come out. The other thing that I recommend for this fight is you want to be able to summon things. So I was testing with minor illusions here, but it seems like that actually doesn't work. But one thing that does work is spiritual weapon. So that will be able to create a summon with just a level 2 slot, which means that you can do it multiple times throughout the fight. And you basically want to put the summon in a place where Grim will come attack it and sit right in the middle where the hammer will drop, and then you can just safely use your mage hand or just shoot arrows to activate the lava and the hammer. Now in honor mode, Grim usually hits for an average of 25 but also upwards to 40-ish damage, which means that Grim can just one hit your party members with one melee. As you can see, I'm just using the arrow to activate the lava. That way he's heated, because otherwise he's literally just immune to every damage. And then after that, we're going to just go ahead and try to lead him into the hammer. And because we never got on the platform, we are completely safe. Theoretically, we don't even have to actually lead him to the hammer, because we can go ahead and just shoot arrows and throw things at him until he dies, and that would work too. But he has a whopping 450 HP, so it will take a long time if you want to do it manually. Now comes the other aspect of this fight, which is the fire methods, and they do have fly, which means that they will come up and try to attack you, so be mindful of that. But you still have advantage, and also Grim can't attack you, so sometimes Grim will just attack the other methods for you. But either way, you want to go ahead and focus on those methods when they come out, because they are basically the only enemies that can damage you in this fight when you are so high up on the platform. And as you can see, I have summoned my spiritual weapon, which means that now when I pass my turn, then Grim will come in and attack the spiritual weapon, as it's the only thing that's on the platform that is available for him to attack. And as we discussed earlier, I'm just going to go ahead and focus on taking down the fire methods, as they are the only thing that can actually damage me in this fight. Yeah, so as you can see, now he's here, which means now we can go ahead and activate the hammer, which will take down a huge chunk of his HP. Now, one thing to note is that every time he is hit by the hammer, he's actually going to reset, which means that he will become immune to all damage again. But that's totally okay, because once he kills the spiritual weapon, then he will just walk towards you, which means he's going to hit the lava and get superheated. And then you can just go ahead and summon another spiritual weapon to bring him to the center, and then just use the arrows again to activate the magma, and then activate the hammer when it's the right time. So as you can see, now because there's nothing on the platform, he's going to walk towards me into the lava, and then now we can just go ahead and summon the spiritual weapon on the other side, which means that the next time he takes his turn, then he will just walk towards the spiritual weapon, and then after that we can shoot the right lever, which will drop the hammer on him again. Now, as is expected in honor mode, it seems that my returning pike has not returned, even though I didn't use it to start the battle, which is usually when it doesn't return. So I've been using it this whole battle, and then I shot it, but somehow due to a bug it didn't return to my hand, but that's totally okay. These things just happen in honor mode a lot, so now at this point I'm just throwing any random thing I have, the gold that I have, and I'm going to eventually throw a severed arm at him, which actually ends up doing like 50 damage because of the bludgeoning. So these things just happen. It's just good to expect in honor mode that not everything is going to go completely fair and perfectly, and it's good to account for that. Now Grim is finally on the platform, being drawn in by the spiritual weapon, which means now we can just go ahead and drop the hammer, and there you go. And we have completely beat Grim without him hitting us a single time. Now Y'llek took 7 damage because of the fire method that ended up using some spells on her. But yeah, relatively completely safe. Now I'm going to pick up the return pike, which did not return, but I'm going to go ahead and pick it up now. And yeah, that's how you defeat the monstrous Grim that is in honor mode. Right now, only Shadowheart can equip the adamantine splint armor because she has heavy armor proficiency, but we will be multi-classing into other classes very soon, which will allow our main character as well as other people to equip the arguably best armor in the game. And after this point, then 3 out of the 4 members of your party should basically be immune to critical hits, as you have 2 armors and 1 helmet, all 3 which give immunity. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and as a bonus meme, I will go over the Glut fight, which basically is whenever the Glut sees that you have slain the Dwagars, then he's going to now plot a coup against you to overthrow Spa and become the King Myconid. Now, if you refuse him, then he basically will just try to kill you, which is not ideal. So you can just tell him that you are going to help him, and then this is what you can do. So you can just take him because he's in your party, and you can lead him into this nice Biberbang field right here. And in very, very dark urge fashion, you can just go ahead and ask him to attempt to fly. And yeah, he can just go ahead and try his best. And oh, what do you know? Oh, he did not make it, and now we have completed the quest. This is the cleanup for Act 1, and now Act 1.5, which is going to be the Githyanki Creche, is going to be coming up very, very soon. So go ahead and subscribe, and also go ahead and let me know in the comments what you would like to see next, going on our way to Act 1.5. And I hope that I will see you there. See ya. When you get to the monastery, here's a big shortcut to take to hit only the relevant parts of this section. You can simply use Featherfall to jump off the ledge, then climb up the vines like so. There's an elaborate puzzle where you need to explore the entire monastery to grab the various ritual weapons while fighting a lot of the enemies, but to save you a lot of time, you can just get your dedicated sleight of hand specialist to pass a DC 30 check. As covered in the last videos, you can find the Smuggler's Ring and the Gloves of Thievery if you are having trouble. With this, you can get the Dawn Master's Crest, which can save you a lot of trouble getting the legendary weapon, the Blood of Lathander, later on in this video. That's all you need, so after that, just come back the way you came and climb further down to skip all the fights and just enter the Githyanki Creche through the secret back door. If you have Lae'zel with you, or if you are a Githyanki, you don't need any persuasion and you can just simply walk in. Since every single Githyanki will turn hostile and fight you later, similar to the Goblin Camp, we can eliminate them in small batches to save ourselves a huge fight later on. These two Giths are not linked to anyone else, so once you are free to walk in, you can take the high ground and attack them when you are ready, and since it's a 2v4, this part should be pretty breezy. A bit further in, there will be a Gith trader with a lot of good items, so you can trade here before you fight if you want. As a general rule, you should try to close doors before you commit murder to minimize the chance of creating witnesses. When you're ready, there is another high ground you can grab, so you can position your ranged characters up there, then start your fight with your martial classes like so. For a lot of these patrolling Giths, you can catch them alone or with only one partner, so you can safely start each fight as a 2v4 and clear them with plenty of rest in between. This will be a lot easier to do in the beginning since, as I mentioned before, they will all turn hostile at one point and you will need to fight everyone at once if you don't do so right now. Also, a build that I haven't heard anyone else talk about that helped me a lot in Honor mode is a sorcerer with a single multi-class into cleric. With Domain of Life, you can wear heavy armor, which are the most protective in the game, and you get Sanctuary as a bonus action, which means that after you twin haste towards your two main damage dealers, you can just cast Sanctuary on yourself and just turn your brain off and chill for the rest of the fight with zero effort into positioning. Am I too close to the fight with a high risk of getting hit and losing concentration? Am I too far where I won't be able to hit the proper targets when it's going to be my turn? You basically never have to think about that again. For the Infirmary, just to prepare you in advance, this is one of the only QuickTime events in the entire game. Right after you finish with the Zaytisk, the doctor will run out to get her tools. But what that liar will be really getting is everyone in the infirmary ready for battle so that they can attack you all at once. To avoid this, right after the dialogue, place your team near the door, get ready to enter turn-based mode, then close the door to minimize the chance of witnesses, and eliminate her while she is alone before she can notify the others. Some of you might be asking, can't I just eliminate everyone outside the door, then just fight her instead of talking to her? That way I can just get on the Zaytisk at my own leisure? No, you can't do that, because that would be too sensible, and that won't get your blood rushing like catching her right at the door will. And what are we doing if not playing for the thrill and adrenaline of the game? Also, even if you mess up, the entire infirmary isn't that strong, so you won't wipe either way. For the captain's quarters, as always, you want to close the door before committing any murder. Also, this doesn't make a huge difference, but if you hand over the artifact, the captain will need to walk over to unlock the gate, separating her from her wolves. This way, when you use turn-based mode to start combat, the wolves will need to waste turns traveling to you, but whether you use this trick or not, just focus on the captain as hard as you can, as she is by far the strongest. Then focus on the caster, because she can cast dangerous crowd control spells, then save the wolves for last. Shadowheart is afraid of wolves, so she might be immobilized from Frighten, but she's usually a ranged character, so it doesn't really matter. You can also use Spiritual Weapon to keep the wolves at bay to buy another turn to focus on the captain or the caster to make the fight even smoother. Also, the Gith Patrol outside check this room occasionally, so make sure to guide everyone outside this room to the afterlife before starting this fight to avoid any unwelcome surprises. Now for the entrance of Creche Y'llek, you can grab high ground by climbing the ladder and starting combat by eliminating the single archer up there with you first. Then you can bring your melee character down to guard the ladder while you focus on the ranged mages on low ground. This way, the melee enemies will be forced to focus on your front line or take opportunity attacks while wasting their turns going up the ladder. At this point of my campaign, the main plan is for Tav to be a twin haste bot, while Shadowheart is a bless bot, both buffing the primary damage dealers of Berserker Karlach and Open Hand Lae'zel. Shadowheart can occasionally drop a spiritual weapon to distract enemies, while Tav literally just naps in his sanctuary in the corner 99% of the fights, while still producing massive action economy. Now, before going into the infamous Inquisitor fight, for the Gith training school, the only honest threat is the fighting instructor, with the supervisor looking over them being a far second. You can eliminate or incapacitate a youth using dialogue before this fight, but either way, you should be fine as long as you prioritize eliminating the instructor first. The youth themselves are relatively harmless as they don't do a lot of damage and they are quite low level. Now for the hardest fight in Act 1.5. The Inquisitor. First thing, when you meet Blackith, do not test her patience too much, as she can instantly wipe your entire party during dialogue, which can end your entire honor mode run without a fight. Second, once you finish talking to Blackith, do not leave the room, for example to pick up the Blood of Lathander, because this will immediately turn Lae'zel hostile, which means that you will need to kill her permanently, so she will no longer be a part of your party. If this happens, you will need to fight the Inquisitor with only 3 members, which will greatly increase the chance of you wiping and ending your honor mode run, as the fight is hard enough with 4 people. After you comply with Blackith to enter and exit the Astral Prism, regardless of the result, the Giths will start a fight with you right away, which means Lae'zel will be forced to ally with you as her kin are trying to execute her. Also, the Emperor will give everyone Bless, increasing their accuracy after entering the Astral Prism, so it is highly recommended to enter the Prism before engaging in this fight. And in this fight, arguably more than any other in the entire game, requires you to rush down one target as fast as humanly possible. This is because twice per round, when you attack, Inquisitor Wargaz will summon a sword that does an average of 10 psychic damage up to 18 damage per hit. This means that if you waste any attacks on anybody else, the fight will very quickly spin out of control, as there will be swarms of swords which can down a member all by themselves without even considering the other enemies of this fight. Luckily, when Wargaz dies, all swords will disappear, so when you focus him down as hard as you can, he should go down before the 3rd or 4th sword is summoned. Also, Wargaz will not be able to summon swords when he is incapacitated, so knocking him prone, stunning him, or paralyzing him can prevent a couple swords from being summoned when they should have, which further tip the fight in your favor. This is another reason why Berserker is so good in honor mode, because it can reliably knock Wargaz prone to prevent him from summoning more swords. Once Wargaz is killed, the fight is basically over, so cleaning up the rest of the enemies should not be a problem. After defeating the Inquisitor, you can go west to find the statues that lead you to the Blood of Lathander. Rotating the stuck statue will require a very hard strength check, but you can bypass this by simply throwing a grease bottle to loosen it up. After you arrive, there will be repulsor traps, which can and will wipe your entire party by pushing them into chasms if you let them. This part is infamous for ending honor mode runs of overconfident players, so to play it safe, make sure to leave at least one person behind before engaging in any of the traps. When you finally get to the Blood of Lathander, just insert the Dawnmaster crest from the beginning of the video, and it will give you the legendary weapon without tedious countdowns that threaten to destroy the entire monastery. Now this hallway is where we will normally fight all of the Githyanki that we haven't defeated yet, but luckily as we took down everyone in advance, so we can simply walk right through and no harm, no foul. As we start off into the Shadowlands of Act 2, there is one last fight we must face. The Death Shepherds. This fight can also be quite dangerous for the uninformed. The main gimmick of this fight is that the Death Shepherds can make the surrounding undead resistant to damage and revive them constantly. If you waste resources killing any of the undead, they will be revived the next turn by the Death Shepherds. For this reason, your highest priority should be to kill the Death Shepherds as fast as possible. There are 2 of them and they are quite tanky, so just pick the closest one to the party, focus him down, then move on to the second Death Shepherd. Remember, don't waste resources attacking the ghouls until you finish the Death Shepherds first. As you can see, I even use smoke powder bombs for Shadowheart's actions to damage the Death Shepherds as fast as possible, since after they are gone, the fight is essentially over. Lesser Restoration is also good to prepare, as all the ghouls have a small chance to paralyze, so it can bail you out in the off chance that it happens. For Honor mode, there is a bigger version of a ghoul called a Ghast here, but that's not nearly as important as focusing on the Death Shepherd. When entering the Shadowlands, the Light cantrip is really good because if you don't have a Light resource, the Shadow Curse will damage you every turn, and holding a torch is not ideal for martial classes who want to be holding their weapons in battle. The order of events might differ depending on where you enter the Shadowlands from. If you start from the Mountain Pass, you will encounter the Absolute Cultists first. Since you want to eliminate all of them eventually, when the Goblin is playing fetch with the hyena, force him to go grab the stick instead, making him succumb to the shadows in the process, as the hyena is easier to deal with than the goblin. For this fight, the two half-orcs are the main threats, so you want to focus them first, then deal with the goblins after. After clearing them and resting as needed, you can call Karnas using the Spider's Lyre, which you can get from either Minthara or Nier. When he arrives, he will freak out as the rest of the cultists are dead, so you will need a good yapper with high persuasion to convince him that you didn't kill them. Karnas is very strong, so while you can fight him while he is alone here, there is a better way. After you convince him that you definitely did not kill all of these absolute cultists, you can have him escort you to Moonrise. And on the way, you will be ambushed by the Harpers, and this will give you an opportunity to turn on Karnas. This will make it so that you don't have to take him on alone, but you will have 4 allies actively helping you kill him, which will make the fight a lot easier. Karnas has 2 major mechanics for this fight. First, when his allies are killed, he will deal an average of 30 psychic damage up to 60 and silence the attacker, but since we killed all the cultists before meeting him, he won't be able to use this legendary action. Second, he can cast Sanctuary on himself, which will deal about 12 damage when it explodes from him attacking you and breaking it. This can be countered by having a counter spell ready. Otherwise, you want to bring a lot of area of effect spells so that you can still harm him while he is in his Sanctuary. One cool thing to know, counter spell surprisingly does not break Sanctuary even in Honor mode. So if you are using the Sorcerer plus 1 Cleric build that I mentioned earlier in this video, you can counter spell all his attempts at Sanctuary while staying in the back and still be completely safe with your own Sanctuary, which is quite broken. While this fight isn't mandatory, it is free experience and it gives you a nice item, so I will cover it here. When all perpetually lit torches are shot down, 4 shadow doggos will emerge. While none of them are a real threat, you can focus on the alpha as it does the most damage. Once defeated, you will get the Shadow Cloaked Ring, which will give you a +2 damage to all obscured or shadow creatures, and since Act 2 is really dark and there's a lot of shadows, most of the time you will be able to proc this without needing to go out of your way to do anything. For example, when saving the reckless Roland, you will need to kill 2 shadows or intercept them before they kill Roland, so this ring will help for this fight and many more to come. The Cursed Raven fight can be deceptively difficult because there are so many of them, but you can clear this in record time by separating a cleric from the party and casting Spirit Guardians just before or during the battle. Since the other 3 members are somewhere else, the Ravens will have no other target, which means they will rush the cleric and they will all die immediately. In the Shadowlands, sometimes everyone will roll a perception check while simply walking around. When this happens, you want to stop and do an active perception check in real life by checking every bush. More often than not, while not highlighted by your cursor, you will find enemies indicated by the health bar shown on screen. There is a chance that you might be surprised if you go further, so you want to go ahead and initiate combat from a distance. And most ambushers explode when they are killed, so it's not a good idea to bunch up close to them, but it is a good idea to kill them when they are next to each other, as this can start a domino effect of explosions that can take out other enemies at the same time. Isabel is one of the most safe-scummed fights in Act 2 because if you mess up even a little bit, not only will you need to fight a huge prolonged battle in which the party will take a lot of damage, but they will also be forced to kill a lot of beloved characters, resulting in a massive psychic and emotional damage to the player. And since you cannot reload a previous save in honor mode, you really only have one shot at this. Luckily, at level 7, there is a spell that is tailor-made for this fight called Atiluk's Resilient Sphere. Not sure if I said that right, so I'll just put it on the screen. Some players will use Sanctuary on Isabel to buy her a turn for this fight, but what they might not remember is that Isabel is actually suicidal, so she is hard-coded to break Sanctuary by attacking for 2 damage and running through every single enemy to eat as many opportunity attacks as possible to maximize the chance of getting paralyzed and dying. So to save Isabel from herself, this sphere blocks all damage coming in and out and halves her movement by half, so that despite her best efforts, she will need to stay upstairs for 3 rounds while we safely finish off this fight. This spell does require concentration, so it is recommended to cast Sanctuary on Gale as he is not suicidal, though he might be later on. So as long as he moves far enough away, he should have no problems keeping himself safe for this fight. There are 3 bosses in Act 2 that you can simply talk to death, the first of which we will call Goldthorn. Simply toss a couple of gold his way and avoid being antagonistic, and when given the opportunity to do so, roll for Deception or Persuasion, and when you pass the check, he will simply end himself and reward you with a lot of gold and experience. For the second boss, who we will call Drinking Thorn, you will be tested on Persuasion, Performance, and Constitution, so any good yapper with support spells such as Resistance should be able to pass. Once you do, Drinking Thorn will also end himself, giving you gold and experience as well. The last of the bunch, who we will call Surgeon Thorn, we will save for a later section as he ties in with another notable fight. For Moonrise Prison, to ensure that you can defeat enemies in small batches, you want to isolate and eliminate the 2 scrying eyes first, as they can call for reinforcements. As covered in the last 2 videos, they are virtually immune to all damage except thunder, so once again, you can bring your resident 3rd Sun Aura wizard Gale, as his chromatic orbs can destroy them in 1 hit. Afterwards, we can rescue the funniest companion in the game, Minthara. Since there are only 2 questioners, as long as you close the door before you start, this fight should be very easy. On the way out, you can also eliminate this guard by the stairs outside. Even though there are 2 guards right next to the door, they are too busy talking to each other to notice that their comrade is getting murdered in front of them, so he will be completely alone in most cases. Also, to push for further advantage, if you hit him and pass the intimidation or persuasion check, you can quickly hit him again before actually starting the fight. This applies to all enemies we will take out in Moonrise. Now we can move on to the 2 negligent guards. After finishing them, we can find the warden in her chamber, and as long as you take out the scrying eyes, no one else will bother us when we close the door. It is ideal to incapacitate her with stun or paralyze, as she can turn invisible, which can make this fight slightly harder, but she will not call her employees, so this fight should be fine either way, as it is a 1v4. Once we are done, we can go outside and take out the 2 guards near the prisoners. One thing to note is that there are also guards outside, so if we pull the lever and free the prisoners now, they will enter combat outside with the guards, which will put their lives in jeopardy. So to prevent this, we want to go to the dock and take out all the guards outside as well. While the 3 zealots are tied to each other, as you can see, we can wait at one end and focus on 1 guard, which means that the other 2 will waste 2 or 3 rounds dashing over, so you can focus on each of them as they arrive. Then you can take out the acolyte guarding the Zhentarim crate, which will give you 3 more tadpoles if you pick it up and put it in your inventory. With the docks and the prison cleared out, we can free all the prisoners and exit to the docks with Minthara to save ourselves the trouble of escorting her all the way to the front gate using the stairs above ground. Similar to the Goblin Camp and the Githyanki Creche, you will need to fight everyone in Moonrise eventually, so to avoid a large drawn-out battle later on, we can systematically isolate and eliminate the threat before before we progress in the story. After we finish with the Moonrise Prison, we can make our way up to the biggest threat, Disciple Z'rell. She has an ogre bodyguard, but if you ask her to show you her power, she will demonstrate by killing her own bodyguard, which will make defeating her alone much easier later on. Gale is also great here because there are a lot of scrying eyes on the upper and middle floors, so you want a consistent source of thunder damage to make sure reinforcements are not alerted. As usual, we can start the fight by eliminating the scrying eye with a thunder chromatic orb. Another thing to note is that Z'rell actually uses counter spells, so my twin haste actually gets countered here, so I could have incapacitated her before applying the buffs, but since this is a 1v4 situation, you should be able to finish this off without a hitch either way. After that, we can take out the bone mages on the way to Kith'rak. The main threat here is the mistress who leads them, so after you finish her off, the bone mages should fall relatively easily. We can also take out the guard patrolling Kith'rak's personal room, as there is an important note from his wife that we will want to read to skip the first half of the Merkle fight at the very end of this video. As always, we have our reliable Gale on hand, so we can eliminate the scrying eye without giving a chance to call for reinforcements. On our way downstairs, we can also engage the two guards at the bottom of the stairs without prompting anyone else. This way we can have a clean 2v4 in close quarters. Unfortunately, a scrying eye catches me off guard here, but this is exactly why we have Gale on hand with his Thunder Chromatic Orb. I safely take it out before it can call anyone, turning the fight into a 2v4 once again as planned. To eliminate any more surprises, similar to what we did upstairs, first I'm going to find the remaining scrying eye and eliminate it while it is alone. Once we are done, we can close the gate and start a fight with the cultist guards at the Moonrise entrance. For this fight, if we start the fight from above the stairs, then we will be able to gain high ground, and the 4 ghouls will have to waste a couple turns getting to us, so we can focus on the major threat of this fight, which is the paladin and the caster. Bonus tip here, when an enemy is stunned but they die and come back with Death Ward, which is something that a lot of absolute cultists have, then their stun will be removed or reset. So if you have them incapacitated, it will actually be better to focus on other enemies so that you can actually benefit off of the stun, or just leave them alone if they are the only enemy left. In the kitchen of Moonrise, you will see Gnolls and a cultist dominating their mind. If you talk to her and pass a wisdom check, you can sever the mental connection, leading to the Gnolls taking out their master without your intervention, which will save you a little bit of resources. And also the Gnolls will be quite low level, so fighting them separately afterwards should be relatively easy. After closing all the doors in the throne room, you can start the fight with high ground by going above the stairs before engaging. Like before, as soon as I attack, I attempt to roll for intimidation or persuasion. That way, if I pass, I can get a free attack before the battle. I also start on the right side as the other enemies are melee, which means that they will have to waste their turns walking over while I take out their mage. As I covered in the last 2 videos, it is a good rule of thumb to take out ranged enemies if you have an advantageous position, since while the melee characters hit harder, they must make their way to you before they can do anything, at which point you will already be so far ahead in the fight from all the actions that you got for free. On the west side of the first floor in Moonrise Towers, there is another trick you can use to tip the scales a little bit. While there's no door between the Trader and the West Wing, if you go all the way to the edge towards the south, like so, you can enter battle with those in the room without triggering the cultists in the other room. Just make sure to keep your melee back and let them come to you, since if you charge forward, you can be seen by the others and aggro the other cultists in the other room. If you follow this should be a clean 3v4, which should not give you any problems. After taking out the West Wing, you can use the throne room as your bait room with minor illusions. Depending on how far you place your minor illusions, you can control how many cultists you can draw in at once, which means that you can control how many you fight at the same time. Once they come to investigate your cat, you can enter turn-based mode to start the fight when you are rested and ready. When you're done, you can enter the remote room in the East Wing, where you can use minor illusions to draw in the goblins and that last cultist. Just make sure to place it on the edge damage, otherwise you might draw in a Raj, who you most likely want to keep alive as she is a notable, albeit kind of crazy, traitor in Act 3. Another notable fight is the terrifying looking Meanlocks in the basement of Last Light Inn. After entering the cellar, you can investigate for breakable walls which will give you access to the back. If you enter Hide with your whole team, their sight lines will be very visible to you. Another cool thing is that Misty Step does not break Hide, so as I did here, you can place your melee in position before this fight to trigger a surprise round if you want. One spell that is very useful in the Shadowlands, as you would expect, is Daylight Sphere. A lot of shade-related enemies, like this one, get a disadvantage on their attack rolls and can't teleport around when there is a giant source of light illuminating the entire battlefield, so their accuracy and mobility are greatly hindered. On top of all that, with the low accuracy and no teleport, shadows will not be able to go invisible, making them very weak. The radius of Daylight Sphere is insanely large and it stays until long rest without needing concentration, so for a lot of fights, it is a guaranteed benefit for the entire fight with no extra maintenance required. As you would expect in such a dark area, it's great to prepare daylight and check enemies on the first turn to see if they have light sensitivity. While unlikely, due to several factors, the Meanlock fight can spin out of control. This is because they use Claw and can teleport within dark areas, so if you are unlucky, multiple members can get paralyzed and lose their turns. Also, they have a Fear Aura, which makes sense honestly because they are so terrifying to look at, which can immobilize you and prevent you from running away if things are going wrong. To avoid this, it doesn't hurt to prepare Calm Emotions, as this can snap allies out of Frighten if that situation ever occurs. To showcase another example of this, we can grab the tower-shaped key from Mattis in the Last Light Inn to make our way to the basement of the Mason's Guild. This area holds the Helmet of Arcane Acuity, the best helmet for arguably the best build in the entire game, the College of Swords Bard. While I don't have a Bard for this run, I always like to get key items just in case I change my mind and want to change builds up in Act 3. This fight has 6 shadows, so you can just drop Daylight Sphere in the middle of the field as always, and focus on the Wraith as it is stronger than the rest of the enemy squad. Because the shadows know that they can't be invisible and will gain disadvantage on their attacks, greatly lowering their accuracy. As you see, some of them will simply skip their turn because they don't want to reach your teammates next to the sphere, which is pretty awesome. This way, since they can't attack you, you can just attack them at your leisure, making this fight completely trivial with 0 chances of a wipe. For Sergeant Dorm in the House of Healing, you want to bring someone with high persuasion. You can tell him that you are a student, and then you can use persuasion to convince them that they should use their hands on him instead of you. And once you succeed, he will fall immediately, giving you a very important loot that will be needed to rescue Thaniel and lift his shadow curse. After grabbing the loot from Sergeant Dorm, you can go to Halsin to start the rescue for Thaniel and Ernest. This fight is arguably one of the most resource-intensive fights in Act 2, as there are tons and tons of enemies, so it is highly recommended to long rest and elixir up for this fight. Also, it is good to have strong AoE spells like the Wall of Fire ready, as there are often too many enemies to take down using single target damage with just 4 members. After telling Halsin that you're ready, he will go to the portal, which you will need to protect. One thing to note is that unlike most fights in this game, almost all enemies will ignore you entirely and destroy the portal as fast as they can. This means that even if you are near them, they will eat opportunity attacks to rush past you, getting any damage they can on the portal. Knowing this, it is important not to overextend your characters to go for damage, unless they are archers, which can shoot the portal from pretty far away. As there will be many shadows in this fight as well, you can drop Daylight Sphere before talking to Halsin, since it will last the whole day and give you free benefits throughout the fight. As mentioned before, I will drop a Wall of Fire to start since it will pull a lot of weight for this fight. Another thing to note is that there will be a ton of crows that spawn as well, so having 1 damage multi-target spells such as Magic Missiles and Spirit Guardians will prevent them from overwhelming you with sheer numbers. Other than the shadows on the right side, the main threat, other than the obvious melee characters, are actually the Harpers hidden in the trees, because they can damage the portal while being far away, which can be a little bit dangerous if you leave them alive for too long. But as long as you keep these things in mind, you should be fine. After saving Thaniel, you will need to go ahead and save Oliver, and this fight is very, very different in honor mode mode, so you should definitely prepare in advance. First off, there will be a lot of unavoidable necrotic damage for this fight, so it is highly recommended for the team to drink Elixir of Necrotic Resistance if they aren't occupied with other elixirs. Also, there will be a lot of silent spheres that will spawn everywhere in this fight, so it is recommended to minimize the number of casters and bring damage dealers that don't rely on spoken spells. Every round, the first time a shadow dies, Oliver will spawn a Wasting Quiet where they died, which will silence and deal necrotic damage. This means that if you're not mindful about which shadows to kill in the first round, almost the entire field can be covered by silent spheres that constantly damage you. So for this reason, I highly recommend killing the first shadow where there's already a Wasting Quiet, or at least where it will have the most overlap. That way you can minimize the silence area as much as possible. Also, since they are all shadows, putting down a daylight sphere will greatly decrease their accuracy, which will give you a huge advantage. And finally, unlike the lower difficulties, attacking Oliver's dome will deal double retaliation damage. So basically, you should not be damaging the dome directly at any point of this fight. Killing each big enemy will deal 60 damage to the dome, and each small enemy will deal 10 damage to the dome, and 5 small ones spawn every turn. So it is a lot safer to patiently take down the shadows, as it will guarantee that the dome will go down with minimal risk. On top of that, there is a small occasional bug where if you break the dome with direct damage instead of going the other way where you defeat the shadows, sometimes it can glitch the honor mode run and Oliver will stay hostile, making the quest unfinishable. So it's just generally recommended not to attack the dome at all. In the Gauntlet of Shar is my favorite battle of all of Baldur's Gate 3, Balthazar. This is because for most of the fight, you literally don't have to do anything. It's like one of those battle simulator videos on YouTube, but in my favorite game. In honor mode, the Sharn warriors have Radiant Retort, which means that you don't want to use radiant damage on them, as it will deal back double damage back to you. But more importantly, the Umbral Terrors, the portals, do not have this. This means that when you focus on the portals, which you should be doing anyway because you want to try to minimize the enemies from spawning, you can use all the radiant damage you want, which is great. Once the portals are cleared, then we can take down the enemies with other forms of damage that's not radiant. Similar to the Oliver fight, the double retaliation damage is absolutely brutal, so I would recommend just avoiding it entirely. For the main Balthazar fight, you will need 2 spells to make this fight a complete breeze: Knock and Invisible. To get these, we will bring our resident wizard Gale once again and respec him to gain these spells. Afterwards, you can leave the other 3 members behind and approach the main area on the west with just Gale. Once the fight starts, you can use Knock to open the door to Balthazar to force him into the battle, and then just go invisible. Make sure to move after you turn invisible, as the enemies will come check your last known location when able. After you scurry on into the corner, like Balthazar's bed, the portals will continue to spawn Sharn warriors, which will force Balthazar and his brother to waste a lot of spell slots and health fighting them. Now all you need to do is watch and wait until they thin each other out and the fight is almost over. So I will put on some relaxing music over this glorious battle that I simply opted out of. This fight can really go either way since it depends a lot on dice rolls and AI positioning, but in this case the Sharan warriors were completely able to take out Balthazar and Flesh, the older brother, and there are only 3 members left with 2 heavily injured. So now that it's Gale's turn, now we can actually start the battle. I can simply hide and bring in the other 3 members near the waypoint and just walk them over, and since they are also in hiding, they can get an attack in before entering the fight. But either way, the injured survivors will be no match for a full team of completely ready and unharmed characters, so it should be completely fine either way. I hope you enjoyed watching the fight, because I sure do every time I come here in honor mode. It's a very look how far I've come and I'm not even tired kind of moment. The Shambling Mound is deceptively one of the hardest fights in honor mode, Act 2, since the ambushers are fed through one path. Using AoE like Wall of Fire is very helpful. In honor mode, a lot of notable carries like Throw Zerker and Swordsbard are completely nullified because this boss gains immunity to piercing damage. Even the popular Fireball or the bolstered Ray of Frost is less effective here because it has resistance to fire and ice. This means that if you're unprepared, one or more of your damage dealers can be made completely useless for this fight. Luckily, slashing and bludgeoning damage is still normal against this enemy, so carries with these types of damage can still shine in this fight. For my Throw Zerker, since I didn't want to respec into another class, I just brought a handful of armor as they are heavy, and then I'm just going to go ahead and throw them for bludgeoning damage. Also, this boss has an insta-kill ability, which it will use on anyone who is covered in its digestive juices and restrained and in melee range. So it is best to keep your distance unless you have immunity to restrained from freedom of movement or ring of free action, which will prevent the insta-kill ability entirely. In conclusion, as long as you have some form of slashing or bludgeoning damage, along with some immunity to restrained for your frontline characters, you should be free to go. To avoid fighting Yrgir, because he is very strong, you can take out the last Justiciar, who is much easier. Also, this will make Raphael easy to fight later in Act 3, since you will also be able to ally with Yrgir as well. But before we start, when you go down the cracked rocks on the opposite side of the Silent Library, you will find a path all the way down where you can find a ritual circle that was used to split the last Justiciar into countless rats. From there, you can anger the rats, which will cause them to appear in numerous amounts. For this, I like to bring Shadowheart with Spirit Guardians prepared, which can single-handedly clear the fight, as bringing other members can make this fight more complicated than it needs to be. There are a couple rats that cause others to sleep upon death, but coincidentally, Shadowheart is a half-elf with Fey ancestry, so she's actually immune to sleep as well. Once the 20 to 30 rats run into their own demise, the last Justiciar will spawn, and this is a great time to bring the rest of the party to gang up on him together. For loot, he drops a +2 weapon that adds 10% accuracy and also gives an ability to attack without breaking concealment, and also a shield which can be used to cloak yourself in darkness as a bonus action, which are also very neat. While we're here, we can also take out the Silent Library to get the Sphere of Night. As the name suggests, the entire library is under silence, making it very difficult for casters to fight. Luckily, the Librarian, like other portals, are weak to radiant damage, so you can sneak up on it and deal a burst of radiant damage with one person, which will get rid of the silence before the fight even begins. From there, you can sneak in your other 3 members and position them for their first attack as well. Since Bless and Haste will break concealment, so you can actually use them to enter the battle. And remember that the soldiers will have Radiant Retort, like others in Honor mode. Similar to a lot of Act 2 enemies, these Sharan soldiers will also have Daylight sensitivity, which means that if you have your Daylight Sphere prepared, you can set it up in the middle of the battlefield, which will lower the accuracy of every single enemy. After putting the right book to answer the riddle of who can stop the Night Song, and that will be the Night Singer, you can go in and claim the Spear of Night. After you finish this, when you visit Yrgir, he will no longer be invisible, waiting for an ambush, which means that you can just skip this fight entirely. You can trade some goodies with the Maragons also, which is pretty cool. After defeating the ancient dark Justiciars and the infernal demonic hunter from hell itself, we must now face the most deadly enemy of Honor mode, this disc. For those of you who don't know, there is an infamous bug with this platform that can occasionally drop your entire team and kill them. So to prevent this, avoid having all 4 members on the platform at once, as this platform has probably taken more honor mode runs than any other enemies in this area. You can solve the 3 other puzzles to get the Umbral gems ready to move forward, but you can also just bring Gale and use Knock, which will save you a ton of time. Note that this is a hard point of no return, so you should finish all quests that you like before entering the glowing pool, as they will all be cancelled or updated and you will not be able to go back for them. The other point of no return is the road to Baldur's Gate, leaving Act 2, which will be at the end of this video. Since Shadowheart is a kind soul at heart, even if you leave her to her devices, she will find it in herself to spare the Light Song. So after that happens, we can make our way to Moonrise with Aelin to take down Kith'rak Thorm. As Jaheira has some important quests in Act 3, but is just as suicidal as Isabel, we can convince her to join our party to keep her in the back for this upcoming fight. As before, Quartermaster Tally has some great items, but we will save most of our trades with her until after dealing with Kith'rak, since that will remove the fast travel restriction, allowing us to bring our dedicated trader. Since most, if not all, forces have been wiped out already, once the fight starts, you can let the Harpers do all the work. This way, you can conserve resources for the upcoming Kith'rak fight. One thing to note is that after defeating the Bugbear Trader, you can find a +3 armor class shield from his stock that's lying about just in the open world, and this shield is objectively better than most shields in the game because instead of giving +2 AC, this actually gives +3. Since I haven't had a long rest yet, I will go ahead and walk out of the no fast travel zone to do that and set up some elixirs. Before we face Kith'rak, if we go into his room to open his locked chest, we can find out about his wife, which will allow us to persuade him to stand down when we fight him. While this won't work, this will open up another dialogue option when facing Myrkul, which allows us to skip the first phase of his fight entirely, saving us a lot of resources in the future. This will be our first encounter with a Mimic, but there is only one of them, so it really is no problem, barely an inconvenience. Once we are on the rooftop to face Kith'rak, like I mentioned, we can remind him of his dead wife and convince him to stand down. Passing the check will unlock the dialogue later on, but Aelin will piss off Kith'rak, so we will still need to fight him. For this fight, as long as we can drop Kith'rak's health low enough, he will retreat, so we will want to focus on him as much as possible. Note that he has very high armor class, so it will be very difficult to hit him if you don't have enough accuracy. After he leaves, the other enemies will be negligible. Here, I am able to bring Lae'zel into melee range with Misty Step and focus with other ranged characters as well, leaving Kith'rak to leave in the first round, making the rest of the fight very easy. Everyone talks about Baromancy, but I will teach you an even stronger school of magic, and that is Bombmancy. Before you jump into the hole, into the Mind Flayer colony, which is another point of no return, since you will not be able to interact with the traders after you jump into the hole, into the Mind Flayer colony, if you want to make this fight trivial, you can actually buy 2 stacks of smoke powder bombs using the leveling trick used for the Hill Giant elixirs in part 2. This will be about 40 smoke powder bombs, which should statistically one-shot Myrkul, if not taking out 95% of his health. You can bring barrels into this hole for Baromancy as well, but it will heavily encumber you, and since Myrkul is not the only fight in this area, it will be a big hindrance in battle and make exploration not ideal. Luckily, smoke powder bombs are very light and in high quantities way more effective. For reference, 1 smoke powder barrel is 26 kilograms and deals a maximum of 34 damage, but the smoke powder bomb are 0.3 kilograms, which means that with the same 26 kilograms, you can carry 86 bombs, which will do a maximum of 1,806 damage in one shot. So Bombmancy is truly overpowered in this game, and honestly, if you wanted to, you can stack an unlimited amount with Godmaster Tally to one-shot every boss in Act 3 because they are also insanely cheap at 16 gold each. So memes aside, Bombmancy is truly the answer. We are going to rescue Mizora to avoid Will turning into a blob, since Will is a bro. We're not going to rescue Zevlor because I'm not saving every Tiefling in this run, but we do want to go to the Necrotic Laboratory since it holds one of the most powerful and iconic item, the Resonant Stone, which will be useful for our monk's psychic damage and if we want to change to Shadow Blade build later on for whatever reason. While there are a lot of different threats for this fight, very similar to the Mountain Pass fight, the biggest threat here by far is the Death Shepherd, as they can and will revive zombies when they are able. So while they are deep in the middle, I still recommend taking it out as fast as you can before damaging any other enemies. Once that is done, since there are a lot of zombies, you can safely retreat with Misty Step and use AoE such as Wall of Fire, or in this case, Sunbeam and Ice Storm. Don't be afraid to go all out and use your high spell slots for this fight, since there will be a long rest refresh station right after this, or right before the Merkle fight. After getting refreshed, we encounter the Sharon Disc's dangerous cousin, the Neural Platform. While not as common, there are also reports of parties falling off of this one and dying in honor mode, so to prevent a potential wipe, you can avoid putting all the members on the platform at once for this section as well. When you first enter the folds, you will not immediately start combat since there will be a cutscene, and then after the cutscene, before walking forward and entering Kith'rak's line of sight, you can turn one of your companions invisible to help Aelin out of her soul cage before you start the fight. That way you can save yourself the trouble of fighting through the enemies to do so. Normally this job is perfect for Scratch since he is the only summon who can use help, but as you can see it works perfectly fine with any other person. The battle will start when you free Aelin because this breaks invisibility, and if you successfully persuaded Kith'rak before, now you can convince him to stop fighting, which means that he will immediately sacrifice himself, allowing us to enter phase 2 of this boss fight with the avatar of Merkle. After Merkle spawns, the main threat of this fight is actually the Mind Flayer on the right side. While Merkle hits hard, the Mind Flayer can actually stun your entire party with its AoE Mind Blast, which heavily swings the action economy against you. You can most likely defeat Merkle normally, but he is the hardest mandatory fight in the entire game if you just want to get your golden dice. So you can also use a bit of Bombmancy like I did here. I threw the pouch of 40 smoke powder bombs and used a fire arrow, but that didn't work. So I just had Y'llek go up and loot it, and then drop one stack, which is 20 smoke powder bombs, and then drop the second stack on top of the fiery surface created by the fire arrow earlier, which exploded and killed Merkle immediately. And also, don't worry, Y'llek survived because everyone was given Death Ward before this fight, since it doesn't require concentration and can be used on multiple targets from a single caster. Also, it lasts until long rest, which is great. And there you go. That's how you defeat the hardest mandatory boss in honor mode in one hit. As a bonus fight, before we leave Act 2, I will go over the Gith ambush towards Baldur's Gate. As you approach the west, you want to go ahead and hide with your entire team to ambush their ambush. You can scale either side of the incline to the bridge like so, and when you approach the middle of the bridge, all the Giths will spawn and whoever is sneaking at the very front will enter battle. Normally in honor mode, the captain in the middle will get progressively stronger each time another Gith is killed, eventually reaching 20 armor class and 6 Eldritch Blast beams per action. But since we're able to sneak our way up the bridge, we can easily just focus on the boss before killing any other enemy, preventing her legendary action, which buffs her entirely. As with many fights in the game, once the boss is eliminated, then the rest should be pretty easy. Now that Baldur's Gate is just beyond reach, I will go to bed and end Act 2. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment for more. And if you want, give me money on Patreon for rewards so I can also keep making videos. Good night, and I will see you in Act 3. Oh my god, there's a totally unexpected Githyanki ambush from the Astral Prism. Okay, for this part, all you really need to do is have your player character reach the portal, so you can get Lae'zel to give you jump, or use Misty Step or Dimension Door, and then that way you can skip the entire fight here. Once you enter the portal, everyone will follow by default, and then after you enter, you will fight a couple more monks, and they are relatively weak. Finally, when you make your way to the center, the identity of your mysterious guardian is to be revealed to be another Mind Flayer. Make sure you do not oppose or kill the Emperor, as he is protecting your mind, so it will actually result in an instant game over, potentially ending your honor mode run. While the monks aren't a massive threat by themselves, they do have the Fist of Unbroken Air, which can push your allies very, very far, which means that if you're not careful about how you position your team, they can get pushed into the chasms for an insta-kill, which you should be mindful about. But other than that, as long as you focus on them one at a time, it shouldn't be a crazy fight. Make sure to loot the bodies, as the monks have very good loot. And now that we've secured our mental safety, we can finally go to sleep for real this time. If you enjoyed this content and want more, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment, and give money on Patreon if you want. And this time, I will really see you in the next video of Act 3 of Baldur's Gate.